welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack.
And Sean Chapman.
We are here as always to talk about stuff. Apologies for our absence last week.
Yeah.
Giant blizzard.
Yes, yeah.
I wasn't going anywhere.
I wasn't going anywhere.
So, yeah, no podcast.
I feel like that was a reasonable one.
Yes.
Because it was a considerable amount of snow.
Yes, and it was right over like the 3 or 4 day period where we might record.
Yeah.
And then by the time it was over, it's like, well, it's easier just to wait until next week and get back on our schedule.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have no compunctions about that one. If we had to miss something for a week, snow is as good as an excuse as any.
Yeah, if you live in Colorado, you know. Don't fuck with it.
No.
There's like times when you need to go out into the snow, and there's times when you don't, and recording this podcast is not a necessary thing.
No. Most things are not risking your life in snow for.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. But we have so much to talk about today. In fact, we had enough content to catch up on today that we were thinking about recording like 2 or 3 episodes. We don't have time for that tonight, so we're going to do one that's going to be a big kind of catch-all, catch-up episode where we're going to talk about The Witness, which is kind of the big new PS4 game of the month. I'm going to talk about Gravity Rush Remastered, another PS4 release this month. We've got a lot of news, like movie trailers, things like that.
The Super Bowl just happened.
Different kind of life updates. It'll be a fun one. Just one of our random stuff episodes. These are the kind of weeks where we earn our name.
Yes.
Just the Stuff Podcast, yes. And then in the weeks to come, we'll have episodes like our review of Persona 3 the movie, number 3, Falling Down. The Blu-ray is sitting in front of me. Sean and I will watch that at some point and record an episode, and maybe we'll bank it for later. I'm not sure when it'll come out, but it'll be there sometime. It's not the most timely thing in the world, so I don't feel like we have to get to it immediately.
It's not necessarily, it's not, there's not an audience pensive waiting for our opinion on Persona 3, the movie number 3, Falling Down.
But I know we have a ton of fun with those episodes, and for the people who like them, I imagine they have fun with them.
I mostly just really want to watch the fucking movie.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
but I don't want to stain the purity of our episode by watching it beforehand. So
yes. Anyway, so that'll be I've had the Blu-ray for like a week. It came during the blizzard, and I thought about watching it. Like, no, it's a tradition. Sean and I watch them together and record a podcast. It would feel wrong otherwise. It's a weird thing with this weird movie series. But anyway, we'll have that. We've got. I know near the end of the month we're going to do a Pokemon 20th anniversary episode because heck, the Nintendo bought ad time on the Super Bowl to talk about it. We've got to talk about it.
For reasons I don't really understand, considering it wasn't advertising a game.
And there's nothing coming out other than a re-release of the 20-year-old games.
Maybe they're like, this will make people get really interested in Pokken Tournament.
Yes, but this is why we have to talk about Pokemon, because it's weird and awesome and sometimes not awesome and worth talking about. So
Absolutely.
Anyway, lots coming up, but this is going to be kind of a random stuff episode. And why don't we start with the most timely stuff, Sean, and go to the Super Bowl?
Okay.
Super Bowl was yesterday. We're going to mostly talk about the movie trailers and stuff, but just what else? Like, did you watch the game? Did you see anything?
I saw a decent portion of the game because there were some family friends over. I'm not a huge football guy, but I understand enough about football to be able to appreciate it. Like, I understand the rules and everything and a bit of the strategy. And so that was fun, I guess.
Yeah.
The Broncos won, and so we're situated in Colorado, so that was nice.
Very nice. And I watched most of the game, too. And, it was... It was an entertaining game. Like, if you were super into football, I could understand it being the most frustrating thing on earth, because both teams, other than the Broncos' defense, played terribly. And it was all fumbles and missed passes and interceptions.
It was entirely, like the offense for both sides never did anything in that entire game.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of funny. But it was a kind of interesting game because of that. Like, I found it entertaining. And then the ads were awful.
Terrible. So bad.
But Super Bowl ads are always awful. There's this weird myth that I've never understood that they're good, but I would say this year they were entertainingly awful. Sometimes.
Like, this year, like, almost, because it was also just almost, like, disappointing because usually, like, they're bad, but there's usually an ambition to a certain percentage of Super Bowl ads that I at least understand why people talk about them. This year, I thought most of this, like, this just is a normal commercial. Like, there's no sense of, like, production or scale or, pomp to it anymore.
The 2 most ambitious ads I saw was the Hulk Ant-Man one for Coke.
Yeah.
Which I guess that's part of the MCU canon now. And then the one where it was Amy Schumer and Seth Rogen leading a march for Bud Light.
Right.
Those were the only ones that, like, seemed like money went into.
Yeah.
And other than that, like, the funniest one was, I think it was after the big interception where the Broncos got the ball back and ran, like, 60 yards to get the next touchdown.
Yeah.
Right after that, so big dramatic moment of the game, really exciting. Right after that was, like, the minute-long black and white commercial about people being constipated from being hooked on opiates.
Yeah.
That, hands down, best moment of the Super Bowl. I don't know who thought that was a good idea for a Super Bowl ad. It was fucking hilarious.
I mean, there is a certain element of it where there's a severe tonal whiplash because it just feels like nobody organized the commercials properly, because you would just get one that was like, this is about like drunk driving or like a super serious topic, and then it's like all of a sudden it's like, yeah, beer. It's like, hey, you should put those commercials, you should juxtapose those two commercials next to each other. That's a bad idea, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that the most fun thing about the Super Bowl for me is that it's kind of the last television event in the United States that is still growing in viewership and is still kind of bringing people together. Like, it's one of the last big communal things we have in this country, or in the world, really, because most viewership for TV and movies and everything is just dissipated. It's in different areas, but everyone watches the Super Bowl at the same time. Like, it gets bigger every year. It's crazy. And it is kind of fun to just be on Twitter and be talking to people and just be online, and everyone's experiencing some of the silly and some of the legitimately fun things that happen. Like, with the halftime show, you got to make fun of Coldplay for 6 minutes, and then you got to go, yeah, Bruno Mars and Beyonce are cool for the next 6. And that was fun.
And you just gotta like stare at like every single screen and like be like, okay, so which company, like, this is like Doritos flying camera, and this is Pepsi brought you the halftime show, and hey, apparently we really need to buy Jeeps, because there were like 500 Jeep commercials, and I saw a lot of guys talking, like sitting in a room talking about football, surrounded by Jeep logos.
Yes.
So that's always my favorite part. It's the sheer consumerism of it that I love.
Yes. It's very interesting. The Super Bowl did not hold my dog's attention. I was watching the Super Bowl with my dog, and some shows keep her attention. Not like literally the show, but if there's dogs on it, she'll calm down and look at the screen.
Surprising lack of dogs in the commercials.
It's surprising lack of dogs in the commercials, and she was like hyper and wanted to play the whole time, and kept jumping on me, wanting to play fetch whenever there was an interesting play going on. So it was, that will be my main memory of the Super Bowl, but no, it was good. I think this is the longest sports-adjacent talk we've ever had on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to happen again.
No.
God, no.
No. But anyway, yeah. It was good. My biggest disappointment, no appearance by Left Shark during the halftime show.
Oh, yeah. That meme is if you can officially kill that meme now, it's over.
It's too bad, because, they even had a montage of the greatest Super Bowl performers.
Which I thought was hilarious.
And it was great, because they had, Bruce Springsteen, Michael Jackson, all the great people, but no Left Shark. It disappointed. I don't need Katy Perry. I need the Left Shark. That was the best part.
Yeah. There's something about the idea of putting a montage of other halftime shows in your halftime show that's just like, and I get that it's like, for me, I don't really care that much. Like, I'm not into sports in that way. Like, and I'm certainly not into sports in a competitive way at all. But so I can understand maybe if you're like really invested into like the NFL and watching all the games and everything, that you would care more about the ceremony of it. But from someone who does not, it looks so absurd. Yes. It's like, guys, stop. You don't need, this isn't something that you need to have this like tearful montage.
Okay.
Of, like, and look at all these other people who have also played in this game that is entirely here to like sell ads to you people.
Yes. And here's the thing. They missed the best thing they could have put in there. Someone put this on Reddit yesterday or today. It's Michael Jackson's entrance when he did the Super Bowl. Have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
Oh God, it's so great. It's this video of him like, dancing, and then he puts his arms up and seems to fly, and then he actually comes out of the screen with smoke behind him.
And that's the kind of shit that's like, when you, like, I did kind of appreciate the montage in a certain way, because it did show some moments like that was like, those look way better than the halftime show that we're actually watching. Yes. Like, this one's okay, but the most spectacular thing about it was they were all standing on a big screen that was like swirling in colors that suggested the Pepsi logo, but never quite congealed into the Pepsi logo.
Right.
But they were constantly reminded of it because the Pepsi logo was always in the corner telling you this is the Pepsi's halftime show.
God, it was funny. And yeah, my comment was the entire halftime show looked like the visual design order was, what if Willy Wonka was a big Coldplay fan? That was pretty much it. But you got to feel bad, I think, for the people who sing during the halftime show, because there's no way you can hear yourself.
Yeah.
Like, there's no possible way, or playing music, whatever it is. I think singing is probably the hardest thing to do if you can't hear yourself. But, so I always, like, people were on Twitter like, I can't really hear the Coldplay guy. And it's like, that you can hear him at all is a miracle.
Yeah.
Like, that is, I'm not a big Coldplay fan. It takes talent to play the Super Bowl halftime show and actually get the words out, I think.
Yeah, you're right about that. It also made me wonder when I was sitting there and watched this, like, very well-edited live performance about what is it like when you're actually at the Super Bowl and the halftime show is going on? Because I assume everyone must simply be watching the Jumbotron, because if you're not getting any of the effect of what is actually cool about the halftime show, which is like there were certain parts where they were having like Bruno Mars sing and then like Beyonce singing and stuff, kind of back and forth and like editing it really well and cutting between the two really well. If you're just watching it live, it would just be a bunch of people standing on a really flashy stage, really far away from you, singing music that you can't hear very well.
No, and it's like Beyonce's whole cool entrance where she's walking in with fireworks going off behind her is completely contingent on framing.
Yeah, exactly. That if you're like looking at it from the top to the side, it just like it looks like there's some explosions going off in your periphery, and Beyonce's right there.
And you can't even tell it's her. It's a woman in front of a crowd of other dancers. Yes. That's all it is, yeah. So, anyway, the Super Bowl is, if nothing else, a fascinating anthropological experiment.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely... You can appreciate the spectacle of it. Like, it is... Because even when I can kind of roll my eyes at a lot of it, there's obviously a huge amount of talent and effort that goes into organizing that stuff and, like, executing it. On, like, even just, like, behind the scenes where I'm talking about, like, it was really well edited and, like, well shot. Like, they had it really well planned, and nobody knows the names of any of those guys that were, like, behind the scenes, like, you know, plugging in all the cables and, like, switching between the feeds and making all that stuff happen. It's like, I really appreciate the skill in the execution of all that stuff, even if some of it's kind of lost on you.
Yes. So, but let's talk about some of the Super Bowl trailers, because those are always, this is where I feel like we get a nice, just concentrated burst of movie trailers.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're really good. Like, some of my favorite spots for movies are the Super Bowl ones. I wouldn't say this was one of those years.
No, yeah.
But there were some interesting ones. Like, I want to start with the most interesting one of the night, which was the trailer for the fifth Bourne movie.
Yes, Jason Bourne.
Yes, and they are calling it Jason Bourne. Here's the thing. There is no movie on the horizon I am as simultaneously excited about and hesitant about as Bourne 5, because I honestly do think the Bourne Supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum are probably the greatest American action movies ever.
They're definitely up there. Yeah.
I will totally defend that. I think it is one of the best American trilogies ever. I think it's the best blockbuster series of the 2000s to date. I just think they are phenomenal, and if anything, a little underrated as like what wonderful feats of filmmaking that second and third film is. And this is a return to that. It is Paul Greengrass and Matt Damon coming back to it, and not just coming back to it, but they wrote the movie together along with Christopher Rouse, who is their editor on those movies. So it is completely the people, you know, who are responsible for this series deciding to come back and make another one, because Universal basically has just had an open invitation for 10 years.
Yeah.
If you want to make one, please God, we can't do the Jeremy Renner thing again. Like Jeremy Renner, that movie's awful. But anyway, so it's kind of weird. Like, I am excited for it on that level because it's a sequel to a series I love. But Bourne Ultimatum is a perfect ending.
Yeah.
And I just worry about them messing it up, even though I think there's so much room, like the idea that we're coming back literally 10 years after the last movie came out. The world has changed. If the movie is really about that, it could be great. If not, it's something to be apprehensive about and excited about. This trailer didn't really show us anything, which is fine. It showed us Matt Damon is fucking in shape.
Yes.
Which, it's kind of, that's another funny thing if you watch those movies again. He does not look like a spy in the first movie. Like, he did not, I don't think he worked out for that one. He looks really skinny and young.
Yeah.
Then in the second one, he's closer. Third one, he's pretty buff at that point, but still not, he's not like Chris Hemsworth or anything. And then in this new one, it's like, oh, shit, he was working out on the set of The Martian, I guess. It's crazy. So that was kind of interesting, and there's some pyrotechnics and whatnot, but they're still shooting the movie, so they're still working on it.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is they're calling it just Jason Bourne.
Which I sympathize with having to figure out what to call the movie, because you never numbered any of them, so you can't just call it Bourne 5. Like, that's... I mean, you could...
Which it really isn't, because it's...
that would also be really, really bad. And then the last... What was even the last one called? Like
the Bourne Legacy.
The Bourne Legacy. So, like, obviously you can't follow anything up on that because that's, like, its own thing. And the Bourne Ultimatum, like, literally that title says that it's the last movie. Like, it's called Ultimatum. You can't have a title that builds off of that anymore. Like, you did your thing with the Bourne Identity Supremacy Ultimatum. That's done. So it's like, well, remember, like, I don't know, let's just, fuck it, Jason Bourne. Like, it's the name of the character. You can there's like brand recognition there, like Jason Bourne. And if we really want to, we can make the S in Jason a 5, and there we go. And the movies, they're still shooting the movie, so there's still time for them to write up that title treatment.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it'll actually come out with this title. It's, it is Universal, and Universal knows from their Fast and Furious franchise that if you've got the right movie, your title doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Because, again, this is a series that has a title called The Fast and the Furious, and then Fast and Furious.
And then everyone just calls those movies then it's just like Fast 5 and Furious 6 and The Ridiculous 7 or whatever they're doing.
Furious 7, and then I think their poster for the next one is just Fast 8, so they don't know what they're doing.
I mean, they never knew what they were doing with those movies' titles.
I love those movies, but the titles are hilarious, so I don't know.
Rocky Balboa is a great movie.
Yes.
And they're basically doing the same thing with the title there. I mean, not exactly the same thing, but very similar.
The Rocky Balboa one made sense because it's like 20 years later, it's the last movie. It's, it made
kind of the last movie.
Yeah. I mean,
it's Creed.
Yes.
Which is obvious. It's a little bit of a spin-off, but it's also kind of the next movie.
It is kind of the next movie, but Rocky Balboa at the time was planned completely as the last one, and Creed is more of a spin-off than it is a sequel to that movie.
But Rocky is still in that movie.
Yes. No, it's a continuation, but it's like that's the end of that franchise. It's like, if you have a video game series and one continuity ends and you start up and you have new titles or something.
Sure, that comparison didn't. You didn't flesh out that comparison enough for me to actually comment on it.
Something's in my mind for that, but I don't know what. Anyway, so
Jason Bourne.
Jason Bourne is what they're calling it. And then the best part about it is the tagline they're going with, which is "You know his name," which just makes me think of Casino Royale because the song in that is "You Know My Name." That's the Bond song in that. And so it's like, maybe they'll just use the James Bond song in the Jason Bourne movie and just let worlds collide.
It's also a weird tagline for a movie series about a spy, and you're not really supposed to know his name. Generally, you're supposed to. That's the whole point, is that he's really secretive and stealthy.
But that is kind of, maybe that's, who knows? This could actually be a thematic thing. Is realistically, 10 years later, Jason Bourne would be one of the most famous people on the planet because he's publicized at the end. He would be like our Edward Snowden in some ways.
That's true.
Because he does this giant whistleblowing thing and then fakes his own death. Not that Edward Snowden faked his own death, but...
Not yet,
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
keep that in mind.
All right. He wouldn't have much of a purpose to do that now, but yes.
Still.
Anyway. But yeah, so it could be interesting. We'll see. Paul Greengrass... His last movie was Captain Phillips, which is magnificent and every bit as much of a technical accomplishment as the Bourne movie, so he hasn't lost it.
Yeah, I have every faith that this movie is going to be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, titles, again, no one involved in the movie probably had a say in the title. That's not how this thing works. But it is kind of funny. They just announced it, and I think, because I've been wondering for months, what are they going to call this thing? What is it? The Bourne something.
Yeah.
No, just Jason Bourne.
The Bourne again.
That would have been fantastic.
Yeah. It'd be a very different direction for the franchise, but...
He's a missionary in, South America now?
Yeah.
Be great. All right, well, anyway, there was that one. And then they did another spot for X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah, I saw that one.
I'm liking the ads for this movie. I just like they're going for a scale, and it doesn't look like any other X-Men movie. I like that they're finally doing an X-Men movie where the villain is not some douchebag human.
Yeah.
It's another mutant who's fucking shit up.
And it's not just another mutant, it's the mutant, man.
Yes.
It's fucking Apocalypse.
It would be it's just crazy to me because they've never really, Magneto is a villain in the other ones, but he's never the main villain.
That's true.
So it's fun to finally have one where it's just another mutant fucking shit up. And I think that'll be cool. I like that they're just fucking up the continuity just left and right now, because you would assume Jean Grey and everyone would talk about this giant apocalyptic event in the other movies, but no. But it's fine. It looks fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for that movie. Although it is something where, because I was talking about this when that trailer was on TV with everyone there, when I was watching the Super Bowl, and it was there's a weird I'm excited about the movie in one way because I'm sure that the movie is going to be good. I have no doubt about that. But at the same time, the X-Men movie franchise has been going on so long now, I find it impossible to get really excited about it, it's impossible for me to get really hyped up, because it's they've just been going on for so long, kind of nonstop with little breaks.
Yeah.
But it's kind of still the same continuity, but kind of not, but it's not a reboot. They've never really rebooted the franchise.
And it's weird because you're right. It's hard to get too excited, even though they're best movies have been their most recent ones.
Yeah, exactly.
The Wolverine and Days of Future Past are way above all the other ones. So
but it's there's still an element of it where it's when I see the logo, I think back to the original X-Men movie, which is kind of a bad movie.
Yes. Well, I think this one will also be interesting because it's the first major X-Men movie that doesn't have Wolverine in it.
No, that's true.
I guess First Class doesn't. He cameos. But then again, First Class is its own weird thing because it's this prequel reboot.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested to see them do a big fleshed out story without Wolverine in it. So, yeah, it'll be fun. I'm interested in it. I like the look of the characters. We got our first look at Olivia Munn is playing Psylocke. I like the design on that.
They've just completely gone with that costume, which I appreciate.
Oh, this is the great thing about the most recent movies is that now that different people are running Fox, they can finally just make comic book movies and have silly costumes. I hope we get the fucking yellow X-Men suits. I guess we got them a little in First Class. So
a little bit, but
we can get them again.
One day, Hugh Jackman will actually wear the Wolverine costume. That will happen one beautiful day.
He has one movie left, and I hope it ends with him dying in that costume.
Wolverine doesn't die. He died in the comics, but that's not going to stick.
No, or it ends with him. He's decided he's out of the game or something. He's done, and then Xavier rolls up to him with a new costume and opens the briefcase, and it's the yellow Wolverine suit. And Wolverine lights a cigar and says, "Let's do this." And then it cuts to him in the yellow costume, getting ready to go fight crime again. And freeze frame on him, and that's the end.
It's just like the Smallville ending, basically.
No, but we actually see him in the suit.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be a great final image for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
Or they just everything that you said, the exact same. Professor X opens it up. It's Patrick Stewart, of course. And it's the last moment in the original X-Men continuity. He opens it up. It's like, "Are you ready?" He's like, "Fuck that shit," and then just walks away, throws the cigar into the case with the costume and just walks out and smash cut to black. That's the end. Last X-Men movie ever made. Hugh Jackman retires as an actor and goes works on a farm for the rest of his life.
And it's just a good symbol for the franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
And nobody understands anything how that even got shot, how it got edited into the movie. Nobody knew that happened. It just did.
All right. We had Captain America Civil War.
Yeah.
A movie that I don't think they can make this movie look bad. It just looks good. And this trailer didn't show a ton of new stuff, but that shot of Tony putting on the Iron Man glove and Bucky just fucking firing at him and Tony looking like he just shit his pants because he almost got shot in the face.
Yeah.
That's a good shot.
Yeah. And there's it looks like that's continuing the trend from the last Captain America movie of having really awesome action.
Yes.
If you're the trailers are any indication, it seems like they are keeping up that trend of really getting in there and being creative with their action scenes and making them very visceral and exciting.
Yes, absolutely. And I like that it looks like they're really committing to the Civil War idea of they are going to just be fucking angry at each other and they're going to throw down.
Yeah.
And that's great. Because if Marvel does anything well, they don't do half measures on this stuff. If they do Rocket Raccoon, they do fucking Rocket Raccoon. If they do Ant-Man, they do Ant-Man with the ants and everything. If they do Civil War, they're going to have them actually fucking fighting and angry at each other, and I like that. Yeah,
I'm super excited about that movie. I don't know what they could possibly do to make me less excited about it.
Yeah, no. And I like that they've played it pretty close to the vest, honestly, with their advertising. Yeah. This is really only the second spot for the movie. So that's good. And we're only a couple months away, so they don't have all that much time to spoil it. Yeah, it seems like Marvel has been really good with their trailers for a long time, I felt. And these have been kind of their strongest ones. Yep. And, people keep talking about, where's Spider-Man? You're not going to see Spider-Man until the movie. There's no way they're not going to put that in one of the trailers. No. I don't want them to put that in one of the trailers. That would suck. Yeah. So anyway, and then the greatest Super Bowl trailers, in that they were by far the worst. Yes. Did you see those fucking bizarre Batman v Superman spots? Yes, for the airplane stuff, the Turkish Airlines. Yeah. Where they had some genius thought it would be great to have fucking Lex Luthor advertise your airline. Let's pick one of the most iconic villains. Fair enough, he looks nothing like Lex Luthor in this incarnation, but his name is still Lex Luthor, and he says that I'm Lex Luthor, and have him advertise your airline? That is so mind-numbingly stupid of a thing to do. I get that, it wouldn't make any sense to have Clark Kent do it, because he's just a reporter, and Superman's not going to advertise an airline. I appreciate them staying in the continuity of the universe to do it, but still, it's Lex Luthor, guys. The whole thing was weird. Would Bruce Wayne chill out and go shoot an airline commercial? Yeah, maybe. Not for some Arabian Airlines or whatever it was called. Not for them. It would be I'm sure Wayne Enterprises in the universe has some sort of airline that they own. Maybe that's actually, maybe he does own them. That could be a thing. It's kind of one of our first extended looks at Ben Affleck just being Bruce Wayne. Yeah. Which Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne is just Ben Affleck, which could totally work. I'm not saying it couldn't, but that's just kind of weird. Because the entire, both of the TV spots, because they were basically back to back
was like the first one was it was Bruce Wayne advertising like, "Hey, come to Gotham," which is like, don't go to Gotham. That's a really bad idea. I've read a lot of those comic books. I've seen those movies. Gotham's a goddamn shithole. It is always snowing in Gotham. It is always nighttime in Gotham. And there's always a gang war going on in Gotham 24/7. There's like no daylight. There's no hope. There's nothing good ever happens in Gotham. Don't go there.
If you play the Arkham games, there's no civilians. There's just
exactly.
rows of gangs.
I mean, there's basically a 100% certainty that when you book that ticket, as soon as you try to go, like the city will have been taken over by a gang of supervillains, and it's like they've evacuated Gotham City. We can't go. I don't know why you even tried. Nobody ever goes there.
Yeah,
like I don't know why they haven't just nuked the city like they're going to do in Dark Knight Rises.
I mean, have you heard also about their weird thing where the geography of Batman v Superman is that Metropolis and Gotham are sister cities that are across a river?
Huh, that's
so weird. They're in the same, they're like New York and Manhattan is the idea.
Huh, like, because I always had the impression that they were both like vaguely like East Coast in the comics, but I don't think they were ever supposed to be that close.
No, and they've even said it's a change to make it more, but it seems weird, like...
That seems really weird.
Because Metropolis is like a beacon of peace, like Gotham could not... just geopolitically exist next to Metropolis. That wouldn't make sense.
That's a weird like the golden shiny Metropolis and then like the dark seedy undercity like that you'd have in some sort of like really forced class metaphor sci-fi movie or something.
This could be a really forced class metaphor sci-fi movie.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. It is called Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
So let's see. Jesse Eisenberg continues to be awful as Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
The Superman stuff still seems... Here's the thing. So they showed Metropolis being rebuilt, and that... or they showed the rebuilt Metropolis in this TV spot, and I had, far and away, the most visceral reaction against Man of Steel I've ever had, not even watching Man of Steel, because I realized, A, there's no way you could ever rebuild the city, period, after what happened in Man of Steel, and B, you couldn't do it 2 years later.
Yeah.
And C, no one in that city would like Superman.
No, yeah.
We, in America... try to ban Muslims from our country when one terrorist does something in France.
Yeah.
Who wasn't even necessarily Muslim. No, they wouldn't care that Superman was the good alien in that situation. They would all be calling for his head.
Yes. Well, that's the point of the movie.
Okay. But they've built statues to him, and he's got cults that he's apparently built up and are following him in this film.
I didn't pay attention to that part.
That's in the trailer. She's got people following him and bowing down to him.
Yeah.
It could be a dream sequence. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to know with like the context of those.
Yeah.
Who knows? But
Sean, I'm so excited for this movie.
I
don't think it's going to be good,
no.
but I'm so excited to see it and make fun of it on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to find out like what like I mean I already know what it is. I already know the plot, but I want to know the specifics. I want to know everything that they do.
Yeah.
I want to know like every weird fucking choice they make with that movie.
God, it's going to be exciting. Anyway, so that's Super Bowl trailers. I mean, there were other random ones, like they did a short spot for the new stupid Jungle Book movie they're doing. And then they did a full spot online that was like 2.5 minutes.
Actually, let's talk about the Jungle Book, because I watched that trailer.
What the fuck are they doing?
It is really, really weird.
Yes.
Having like Bill Murray voice Baloo and like Idris Elba voice Shere Khan and Scarlett Johansson's voicing Ka the snake, even though Ka's a guy. I don't. You've
forgotten the best one. It's Christopher Walken's voicing the gorilla.
I didn't see that. Like, I guess I didn't notice that in the trailer. But yeah, like but it's entirely like a celebrity voice cast.
Yes.
Like which is just so weird because
Ben Kingsley is Bagheera.
It's like,
but it's entirely celebrity voices, but they're doing it as photorealistic animals.
Yeah.
What the heck? It weirds me out.
There's such a strange cognitive dissonance for me of like. Because it's like, it's Bill Murray as Baloo in particular, because Bill Murray has such an iconic voice, and we're so familiar with him as a like voice and a presence. And then like Baloo is such an iconic character from the original Disney animated film, and like I can't remember the voice actor's name from that movie, but he was great. Like he has like a very distinctive, iconic voice, and was very much a voice actor. You know?
And there's been Baloos since then that have used a voice like that.
Yeah, that have like basically done versions of that voice.
I think Jim Cummings did him in Tailspin, and so you kind of get the same character with him.
Yeah, and it's like it's a very much like a properly like voice acted role, not like getting an actor in. And then so it's like having like that like dissonance with like Baloo being such a recognizable voice, and then Bill Murray being such a recognizable voice that is not like Baloo in the slightest, like so different from how Baloo should sound. And then also it's coming out of like this, like you said, a super photorealistic looking bear, which is absolutely bizarre. Like, makes no sense why you go that direction with it.
Because what they're doing, and you can tell this from the trailers, is a more or less straight remake of the animated movie.
Yeah, they're not going back to, like, the original short stories and trying to do those.
No, they're doing the animated movie, which, whatever, it's a classic, I get it. But they're doing it, as you say, like, completely photorealistic. Like, they're trying to make it look like real animals and real scenarios. And that doesn't work. It's a cartoon.
Yeah.
And it works like The Jungle Book is a really good movie, and it works because it's so cartoonish. But, yeah, like... And it just gets like the whole... I love Scarlett Johansson. I think she's a phenomenal actress. Having her voice caw is weird and it's vaguely Freudian and just messed up on a bunch of different levels. In part because she's great. Her voice is not... You can't hide her voice. Her voice is very distinctive. And so you just think, I'm looking at a snake and I'm thinking of Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, which is like not... Like you said, Freudian. There's some weird something going on there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like when they, she did a voice role in the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, but that's very intentional.
Yeah, that's like a live action movie too.
And they want you to think of Scarlett Johansson. Like it's not a mistake that they cast a famous actress for that.
Yeah, and then I also realized I just called that a live action movie. It's like technically The Jungle Book is too, right? Because the kid's like an actual kid, right?
Yeah, I think everything else looks like it's CGI, but the kid is real. Yes.
So I guess I suppose it's probably as much a live action movie as like Avatar is, but still.
Yeah.
And then also like. I love Idris Elba to death. He is one of my favorite actors today. But I guess there's like, I don't know who you cast as Shere Khan because he, like, the original Shere Khan is so good from that movie. Like, there is, like, that is like one of my favorite animated villains. Like, that performance is amazing.
And again, when he's shown up in other things, they do that kind of voice and he's always great. Yeah.
Yeah, the same way that, like every time, like, there's a new Scooby-Doo cartoon, like, obviously the actors are not around anymore, but you have all the people playing the characters do impersonations of that voice. Everyone who's, like, done, like, the Tailspin version of Shere Khan has tried to do that same, like, very dignified, upper-class, menacing British guy.
Yeah.
That was the original Shere Khan. And, like, Idris Elba's just way too tough. Like, that dude he just sounds like he could kick your ass with a word.
Yes.
Like, he's the most, like, tough guy I think I may have ever seen in any movies is probably Idris Elba, and you can just tell that from his fucking voice. And that's not necessarily Shere Khan. Like, there's a delightful menace to Shere Khan that Idris Elba is just like, Idris Elba's great at a lot of things, but that's just not his wheelhouse. You know?
If you hired Idris Elba to play a villain, and I mean, you can go to The Wire and see this because he plays an antagonist on The Wire, he's very cerebral and he's very down-to-earth and kind of calm and collected. But it's in a different way than Shere Khan usually is.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I do think it could work if you had him not playing a photorealistic panther.
Yeah,
because you could stylize it and make it fit the performance.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're doing. It just looks bizarre on every level. And I've seen some people excited for it, and I just don't get it. In part because if they're just doing a straight remake of the animated movie, I'll go watch the animated movie. It's great.
Yeah.
But, And
it's just also weird because it feels like there's such an opportunity to make, just like more faithfully adapt the original short stories. Just go back to the source material because the
Rudyard Kipling stuff.
Yeah, because I read those a long time ago, and my memory of them is not the best, but I know they are not like the Jungle Book animated film that Disney made is not close to those short stories. Like, it just takes the names of characters, basically.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do it again, then I would say you almost have an obligation to go in a different direction.
It's a lot more interesting to go back to the original source material and, like, branch off from that than to try to make, like, the Jungle Book again, the Disney movie again, only, like, super highly, like, super realistically animated in CG and with a celebrity voice cast. And a celebrity voice cast in an animated movie is almost always a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean...
We've seen this time and time again.
I don't want to play, like, the low blow here, but did we all forget about Garfield?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but, like, I love Bill Murray. But did you forget about Garfield? It's the same thing where they had it all live action. Even Odie is a real dog. But you have this just one CGI cat voiced by Bill Murray, who probably would be a good Garfield in a better movie, but that's beside the point. And it just, it didn't work, guys. I know they made a sequel, but it still didn't work. So anyway. And here's the thing, like, the whole thing with Disney is going through, and they've even said this on, like, investor calls, they are planning to remake their entire animated catalog in live action.
Oh, jeez.
That is a business strategy they're going through. And I think that would be vaguely interesting if they were just saying, like, here, interesting filmmaker X, take this material and do what you will with it.
Yeah.
But instead, it's do a straight remake of the animated movie. Like, they're doing one of Beauty and the Beast. and I think it's directed by, I want to say Bill Condon, who can be an interesting director. And it stars Emma Watson, I think, as Belle, and so she's a good actress, and some other people are in it. But they're doing, like, they're going to have the animated lamp and stuff. They're going to have Lumiere. They're going to have Cogsworth. I think Lumiere is voiced by Ian McKellen. And they're doing the whole celebrity cast for, like, all the things in there. It's like, no! Beauty and the Beast is a really interesting property if you were to do it as live action. Like, there is a great French film, if you've never seen it. I think it's probably on Hulu because it's in Criterion, where it's by Jean Cocteau, and it's called Beauty and the Beast. And it is fucking hilarious. It's one of the best fairy tale things you'll ever see because Jean Cocteau knew the value of camp, and he was kind of subtly making fun of and deconstructing this fairy tale while doing a straight-faced version of it. It's a fascinating movie. You would fucking love it, Sean. Yeah. It's great. It's black and white, marvelous. It has this wonderfully hilarious, ironic ending. You could do something like that and go way out there and just do something crazy. And I think it would still make money because it's got Disney's Beauty and the Beast written on it.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, it's a weird. That's just such a weird concept to just like go back to your like catalog of classic animated films and say like, let's do these in live action, but like keep it so close to the original versions that you can't actually really do it in live action because all those movies have a huge number of characters that are not people. Like Beauty and the Beast has like all the household objects that are alive and have voices in our characters, or The Little Mermaid has all the fish people. Like if like. I guess Aladdin has Iago and Aladdin has the genie. Yeah. You have to do them animated or you have to change it. Like you can't take an animated movie and make a live action version of it. Well, you're like taking all the soul out of the original version then.
And they were planning on doing Aladdin and even trying to get Robin Williams back for it, and they canceled it when he died, which is a good choice. But even then, it wouldn't have made sense if he was alive, because it's like, he already did that, guys. Yeah. Like, you're remaking movies that are so recent. Like, these are movies within our lifetimes. Sean, we are not old enough to have movies being remade from our lifetimes.
I mean, and what if they try to do a live-action remake of The Lion King? What is that? Like, do they just, like, film, like, the Broadway musical version, or do they just...
If you did the super avant-garde version with, like, the Broadway, like... animatronics and stuff, that would be fantastic. Yeah. They wouldn't do it, but that would be fantastic.
But that would be hilarious if they like tried to justify themselves. Something that's like the baboon guy is like an actual baboon, like a mandrill, and that's it. Like, is like obviously you're not going to have like try to do like Homeward Bound or something and have all the like characters actually be animals that you like dub over and you like make them like chew on peanut butter or whatever and almost kill them to get them to lick their lips so you can dub over them.
Well, it's like. I hate to say this, but you remember they did in like '99 that 101 Dalmatians remake with Glenn Close?
I don't remember that.
Okay, they did make that. They even made a sequel called 102 Dalmatians.
Well, that's the name for the sequel, yes.
They're not good movies, but I will give
them...
I will give them this for trying. The dogs don't talk. They're real Dalmatians, and it's all done kind of pantomime. And that at least is a direction. Like, that's something... I don't think the movie really works. It's got some interesting elements. I have not seen it since I was a kid, but I just remember not liking it on the whole. But, you know, having the dogs be real dogs and not talking was kind of new to me. Because usually, like you say, it's the Homeward Bound thing where they abuse the dogs and make them talk. Yeah. And you just kind of feel bad, even as a kid, like, that dog just broke its leg at the pit, and I don't know if that was a stunt.
Yeah. It's like, there's a very uncomfortable line that you're crossing here, movie.
Yeah. So anyway, who knows? Let's go ahead and move on.
All right.
We could go down this rabbit hole forever.
I just want to watch The Jungle Book again now. That's a good movie.
We could, if podcast episode, slow week, we rewatch The Jungle Book.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. All right. So, Sean, man, I don't even know where to go. There's so much stuff to talk about. I want to just get into stuff.
Okay.
I finished The Witcher 3.
All right. I did as well a long time ago.
Yes, I actually finished it shortly after our last podcast, so it's been a little while for me. And we will probably do a full Witcher 3 episode at some point, maybe around the time that next expansion is going to come out or something.
Sure.
Because I do still have to play Hearts of Stone. But
Hearts of Stone is real good.
I can't wait to play it. I've bought it. I cannot wait. But I just wanted to say my enthusiasm for that game only kind of grew through the ending part. I don't think... The ending is very strangely paced in that the game seems like it's about to end, and then there's 15 more hours.
Yeah. You realize that like what you thought was the third act was actually the end of the second act, and there is like an actual third act.
Which is fine in the end because it works.
Yeah.
And then I think the actual ending, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really curious. Like, we're not going to talk about it now because I don't want to spoil it. But off the air, I'm curious to hear what your ending was.
And I'm curious to hear yours too, because we usually align on those things.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. And
yeah, because I know, like, after I beat the game, I looked up like what kind of endings there are, and I know like what things can change because there's a couple of pretty significant
there's
things that can be.
It's different. A game basically with 3 main ending types and then some changes within there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty dynamic, but it's fantastic. And I had honestly a visceral reaction, like when I finished Mass Effect 3, of like, I have to put this down and step away from this world because that was such a good ending.
Yeah.
And last night I was playing some other stuff and I just realized I want to play more Witcher, so I bought the DLC and I'm going to play that. I can't wait to play Hearts. Because Hearts of Stone, as I understand it, is kind of a separate story.
Oh yeah, so it's completely its own thing. Actually, it does something really awesome that like it's. I mean, both of us are like we're not in a position to take advantage of it, but they did a thing where when you start it up, like you see, it's basically you can like pick its own menu option. And if you don't have a character that's leveled for it appropriately, because it's leveled for like a save file that completed the game, it will make a Geralt for you that is leveled appropriately and geared appropriately that you can just like jump in and just play the Hearts of Stone stuff. And that's it. If that's what you want to do, like if you had not beaten the game or if you wanted to play that on its own separately, it's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like that's tells you that it can be experienced entirely on its own if you want.
Well, and I also like there's a bunch I need to go back in and do with it because I think I finished a really good chunk of all the side material while I played the game.
Yeah.
But there's a certain point where I just like I have to barrel through the ending or I'm never going to finish it. And I wanted to get to the ending. I mean, that's part of it. It was like there was a point in the story where I'm like, Geralt wouldn't be doing side shit anymore, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And overall, the game is really good about opening that up and not creating ludonarrative dissonance in that. But yeah, so kind of barreled through. But I also, when I finished, I had kind of thought, because over the summer when it came out, CD Projekt Red did those 16 weekly DLCs.
Yeah.
I kind of just assumed they were in the latest patch, and they weren't. So I got them all later.
Right, yeah.
And I might have to play part of the game again, because now there's this new game plus they added and all this other stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple of small Witcher contracts and stuff that they put in there.
Yeah, I'll have to do those, because I'm sure they're good. And CD Projekt Red is a cool company.
Yeah, that was really cool because obviously I played the game when it came out, so it's like I was playing it while they were releasing those little like DLC updates of like, hey, there's like new like Gwent cards now. It's like, oh, cool. I will walk all over the place and just challenge people to Gwent again because I really liked Gwent.
It's funny, Gwent. I have nothing against Gwent. I just I didn't have time for it yet. Like one day I'm sure I'll get into it.
I understand.
I played a little bit of it and I thought it was cool, but it's like there is literally a whole fucking card game you could get lost in within this much bigger game.
Yeah, like there was a weird, because I didn't start playing Gwent right away, but I got like 10 hours in, and I just got this sudden urge, was like, I should probably do some of these. And like, I played a couple matches, like, then I sort of realized the rules and sort of got my head around, and I was like, this is actually weirdly addicting. And I just like went back through and found everyone that I had passed up before. Was like, I'm gonna go play some fucking Gwent, motherfuckers. Like, Ciri, you wait. Like, Bloody Baron, I'm putting you on like the back burn. Like, I need to go play some Gwent right fucking now.
And there is something, I think, in Geralt's character where I think he would do that. I think he would just challenge people to Gwent.
But it is like, it's the best part about the whole Gwent thing is that once you get sucked into Gwent, the best part about exploring that game is then every time you stumble upon a new little hamlet, you're like, I need to go find a merchant. And like, you think it's like, oh, do you need to sell your stuff? Do you want to like buy something? It's like, no, I just need to go play Gwent and get his card. Like that is my main objective now that I've entered this town. It's not to go get the new quest. It's not to go like repair my shit. It's like, no, I need to go challenge everyone I can to Gwent and get all their cards.
That's great. No, I love The Witcher 3. I legitimately, one of the 10 best games I've ever played, hands down. It would be in that top 10 if I were. And I actually am working on remaking some of my lists we did a couple years ago because I want to update them with some just new perspectives I have.
Yeah.
It's worth taking stock of. And The Witcher 3 would be on there. If I were to just start listing superlatives for that game, there would be so many. And one of the things that I don't think gets enough attention, I think the guy who plays Geralt, I think that's one of the best video game performances ever, hands down, by far. And you would only really get that opinion if you played the whole thing and you spent 100 hours with that guy, because you start it and you're like, oh, this is just kind of a generic gruff voice, and there's so much more to it. But it's the kind of performance that could literally only exist in a video game where you have 100 hours to spend with the guy.
I completely agree.
All the other performances are great in that game too, and it's a very different performance style than I think you get in American games, and I love that about it. Even though I totally understand, like my brother walked in and said, that sounds kind of cheesy. It would be jarring if you're not used to it, but once you get used to it, it's really good.
Yeah.
And man, just
I definitely fell in love with Geralt like as a character in that game. Like, you're absolutely right that his performance is slightly off-putting at first, but then once you get deep enough into it, and it's like, and again, it's like the number one thing he does with that performance that's like better than almost any other video game character I've seen, and it's very important in that video game, is that when he stumbles upon like a giant pile of blood, and you like do your witcher senses, and you just like, it looked like he must have gotten attacked by wolves. Like, he nails those lines every single time, and he has like 5 million of them. Yes. So it's like, massive props to that dude, because I've seen lots of video game characters that can't quite do that, and usually you just like let it slide because whatever, it's hard to sell those lines. He does it every single time.
I mean, if you haven't played it, I honestly would compare it to like Kevin Conroy's Batman.
Yeah.
Of like someone who can just be on their own and still act, because Kevin Conroy's Batman in the Batman games typically is not talking to anyone else a lot of the time. He is sometimes, but sometimes he's not, and it's good either way. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to think of an analog, because there are not many.
Yeah.
For what he's doing in that. But the whole game, it is just so good. If you haven't played it, I urge you. If you have a PC, Steam is having a sale right now and it's half off. And I know that because I've kept telling my brother, Thomas, you have to play The Witcher. You would fucking love this game, Skyrim person. Yeah. You know, and he has this new computer he made, because he is a composer and he needs kind of a powerful computer. So he got a new desktop PC he built. And it can play like 4K games. Yeah. Like, The Witcher 3 is like the most gorgeous game ever.
Yeah.
Play that like, 4K 60 frames per second. So I'm almost jealous that he gets to see it that way, because God, is that a gorgeous game.
Yeah. And then he can download the mod that allows you to just like, every time you're in battle, it just turns the battle into a Gwent game. Yes. And he gets to play even more Gwent. Yes. I'm really jealous of that. Maybe
that'll be another DLC they'll release.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes. That Blood and Wine expansion, it's going to be big, I think. So maybe they'll add the more Gwent.
I mean, there's going to have to be more Gwent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. Sean, your thing recently is you've been watching the X-Files reboot.
Yes,
not reboot, but
revival series. I don't know.
It's so hard to know how to talk about these things.
The X-Files season 10. That's what it is. It's the 10th season of the X-Files.
It's just really short.
Yes, it's the you need to sort of like take baby steps when you're bringing it back. It's been a while. It's been like 14 years or something.
So remind the people your relationship with the X-Files.
It's my second favorite TV show ever. Like when we did our top 10 favorite TV shows, that was my second. I don't think I need to say what my number one was. And the X-Files is a show that like I've loved ever since I was a kid, and I would like catch like reruns of it and stuff. And then very occasionally when I was very young, like could see it when it was still on air, because I think it got canceled in like 2002. So it's like I watched it a little bit while it was still airing, but like mostly saw it in reruns on Sci-Fi, and like just fell in love with it because, I mean, and if obviously we talk about Doctor Who a lot, and Doctor Who's my favorite show. And the X-Files and Doctor Who share one really important thing in common, which is I think the main reason why I love them both as much as I do, is that those shows can do anything they want. Like, they can tackle... Like, X-Files is more constrained than Doctor Who, obviously, because it still has the sort of, like, detective, police procedural framework that it needs to work into for it to make sense about why the characters are there. But in general, like, the X-Files can be horror, it can be sci-fi, it can be campy, it can be comedy, like, it can be a blend of all of those things. It can just be straight detective stuff, like, it doesn't have to have any supernatural stuff in it if they don't want to. It's pretty rare, but there are several episodes that do that, and they're, like, really great. It can tell whatever story you want. Like, it is so free from the bounds of conventional TV shows and conventional storytelling. And I love that about it, is that how it can tackle any genre. But more importantly than that, I think that Mulder and Scully are two of my favorite characters of all time. I think they are so absolutely perfect, and they work together so well. And there's something about, like, David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson's performance in The X-Files that is so magical about how they are able to, you're able to, like with the Doctor, you're able to throw these characters into anything. Like, you can give them the most bizarre, absurd case ever, and they can absolutely make it work, and the actors can work with whatever material you give them, and those characters can work with whatever material you give them. And so, like, there's such an imagination and beauty to the X-Files that it's amazing. I love it. I love it to death.
That's great. I have not seen nearly as much of the X-Files as you have. No. It's a show that one day I want to just get on Netflix and watch the whole thing. It's obviously a daunting prospect because there's 9 fucking seasons, and they're all 22 episodes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of it. But I've seen the first season, and I've seen scattered episodes, and I think it's awesome, and I'm glad it's back for the people who love it.
Yes.
I think that's really cool. So, it's back. You are obviously the target fucking audience here.
Yes.
What do you think?
I love it. It's so good. Like, it's something where I think it, like, it's completely impossible for me to watch these, like, because there's 3 episodes that have been out so far that I've seen. It's impossible for me to look at those episodes and tell you, like, what you would think of them, or what anyone who, like, anyone else would think of these episodes, unless they, like, are as big a fan of the X-Files as me. Like, I have no fucking idea how you would understand these episodes, how you would look at them. Like, I am way too close to the X-Files, like, personally and mentally, that I have no idea, like, how other people would react to and, like, understand these episodes. But I think what I love about them is that it is the X-Files. Like, it is completely 100% just the X-Files, and that's what I want. Like, it's obviously it's updated, it's in the modern day, it's set in 2016, and, like, the characters have been, you know, like, off doing their own thing in the interim. And there's a side of it that's a little weird, particularly in the first episode, where you have to get used to the idea of, like, this is a 2016 where the X-Files, the TV show, never happened, because, like, our relationship to government conspiracy stuff and, like, alien abduction and all of that is so completely shaped by the X-Files, because it was so popular in the 90s. And then even, like how TV shows were made and stuff was shaped by the X-Files. It's weird to think about, like, this is a world where, like, alien abduction stuff has not been overdone in the media necessarily the same way it has been done in our actual world. It's like strange. It's hard to understand the world they live in sometimes.
It's a little bit like on Sherlock, where you have to accept that this is the modern day, but there was no Sherlock Holmes in the 1900s, like the story Sherlock, because that shaped all, like, CSI investigations for that whole century.
Yeah.
And so you have to get around that leap a little bit.
Yeah, and how, like, everyone doesn't just, when they run into him, it's like, you remind me a lot of this character, this very famous character from the past, and we have the same name. Yeah, it is kind of like that, where it's like, you have to keep in mind that, like, because the 2016 they represent on screen is not actually that, like, different from ours, but you kind of have to, but you recognize that it has to be different, because the world that we live in has been shaped in some pretty major ways, or the culture we live in has been shaped in some pretty major ways by the X-Files TV show, which obviously does not exist in the X-Files TV show. So you have to kind of get over that. But, like, I know that people's reaction to the first episode of the reboot, or not reboot, the revival, the season 10, My Struggle, which is the title of the episode, the reactions have been pretty mixed, and I understand that. And it's not the best episode in the world, because it is basically the exact same season premiere that the X-Files has had since, like, season 2, which is, like, the X-Files has been closed down, or, like, Mulder has gone missing, or Scully has gone missing. Like, something, like, big has happened at the past season finale, and then now, like, we have to resolve that and get the band back together, and in so doing also sort of uncover the next step in this elaborate government conspiracy. And part of uncovering the next step in the elaborate government conspiracy is realizing that everything we knew about the elaborate government conspiracy is wrong, and this is actually really only the tip of the iceberg. And
it's got to get harder every time they do it, because there's more and more piling up that has to be wrong.
It is harder, and it's like I can understand people being frustrated by that, but at the same time, like, that is so completely the X-Files, and that's so completely what that episode needs to be, because it needs to be, oh, we don't actually know shit, because the whole point of the X-Files is that the truth is out there, and it's not that we know what the truth is. It's not that, like, the truth is, like, in our hands, it's right in front of us. It's like, no, the truth is out there, man. Like, we are never going to know the truth about the government. We're never going to know the truth about the alien stuff. Like, that's never going to happen. That can't happen. That shouldn't happen. Like, it would be disingenuous for the show to do something like that, because it would be going against the heart of what the show is and what it represents, and the struggles that Mulder and Scully have to go through as characters. It's like, they have to do this over and over and over again, because it's the only way to keep the structure of the show alive, you know? So, like, I understand people being frustrated by My Struggle and it being like that, but I just, like, thought, like, of all the things that episode could have been and all the things that episode could have done wrong, like, it picked the right things to do wrong. It picked the same mistakes that the X-Files always committed. It's like, do that, because at the same time, you're then getting all the benefits that the X-Files has always had. And it, like, reminded me of like, those kinds of shows that don't exist anymore, that, like, are, like, technically a police procedural, but, like, have so much fun with that, like, structure in that genre, and, like, and use that structure as, like, a backbone to do things far more creative and far more interesting, which was so lost in, like, the era of, like, all the CSI remakes and NCIS and all that stuff, you know?
Or just any, frankly, like, long-running series that can just be in a universe and be lightly serialized, but also just tell stories and
Yeah.
not have to be consumed by a weekly story.
Yeah.
I love that kind of thing. Yeah, I miss it sometimes.
But there's with this episode, like, I think my favorite part about it is that every single thing about the episode, from the writing, because it's written by Chris Carter, and then it was also directed by Chris Carter. Like, all the episodes, I believe, are written and directed by the same person, and they're all people that were, like, integral to the original run of the show. Like, so everything from the writing to the editing to the performances of, like, David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, like, probably more than any other, like, time I've seen like this, where an actor comes back, like, literally, like, 14, 15 years later to reprise the role. They, like, hit the ground running. Like, they are so completely Mulder and Scully again. It is unbelievable. Because people don't, like, TV performances aren't like that anymore. Like, because the X-Files is a TV show from the era of, like, Law and Order. And, like, there's, like, a sort of stoic sort of acting style that's a part of, that they were very much a part of, that's just not on TV anymore, that, like, you need, again, for this sort of, like, police procedural story. There's, like, a coldness to it almost that you need for, like, this, like, a new story every single week, and not the serialized format. That's, like, they absolutely 100% nail again, which I find amazing, because it's been so long since, like, because obviously there was the 2008 I Want to Believe movie. That's such a completely different thing.
And they're really good in that too.
Yeah.
But as you say, it's not a weekly TV series. It's...
It's a really different format. So it's like, that's great. The music is by Mark Snow. I don't know what else Mark Snow has ever done, but I have seen his name literally hundreds of times, because his name is in the front of every single episode of the X-Files. That, like, right when you're coming in out of the title, the opening titles, like, it says music by Mark Snow. It's like, okay, is still by Mark Snow. That's great. Like, the font and the way that, like, when it will, like, cut away to, like, FBI headquarters or something, and, like, FBI headquarters will, like, type out in the, like, the lower left-hand corner of the screen, like, the font and the pace of that is literally the exact same as it always was. Like, the style of cold open they use is literally the exact same. Like, the opening titles are literally, like, the opening titles from, I'm pretty sure it's a slightly, like, the cut down version of the opening titles from season 5, because they redid the opening titles for season 9. They're not using those. They didn't do new ones. It is like the classic theme. It is like what now looks like baby-faced David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, like, walking into that room in, like, freeze frame mode with their flashlights. That was at the end of, like, all the opening titles. And then then it cuts to, like, modern day David Duchovny, and he's got, like, super, like, long jowls and stuff, and he looks obviously much older. It's like, it's kind of weird that they didn't update it, but I also love that they didn't update it. Like, it's just the X-Files, and that's what I wanted.
That's great.
Yeah. And then I'll just talk briefly about the other two episodes, because obviously we don't want to go super in-depth. But the second episode is much more of a Monster of the Week kind of thing, and so is the third episode. And the second episode's, like, a lot better than the first, because the Monster of the Week episodes were always better than the conspiracy ones. And that one also, again, like, it just feels like another... Like, it feels like a new X-Files story, and they tie it in really well with some of the character stuff, because Mulder, like, there's obviously a lot of stuff happened to Mulder and Scully, but one of the main things was that Scully had a kid, William Mulder, the baby that they gave away to adoption, because they didn't want the government to get to him, because he's probably, like, an alien hybrid. Something happened with that kid. You don't know what, like, all the story behind him. And they tie in that backstory really well, and there's a really beautiful sequence at the end of episode 2 where because they do this earlier on with Scully and her sort of, like, having this fantasy about, like, if William was, like, still there and if he had grown up and she had been his mom and, like, he had been going to school and stuff, and they do a little montage with that. And at the end of the episode they do the same thing with Mulder, and his montage is so perfect, and it's so heartbreaking, because the idea of Mulder being a dad is so weird, because he's such a strange character. But he's, like, the first part is he's sitting down on a couch with his son, and they're, like, watching 2001: A Space Odyssey together, and he's the kid's asking about, like, what is the monolith, what does the monolith mean, and Mulder's sort of explaining that, like, well, everyone sort of has their own ideas, and people think that maybe it represents, like, the humanity's first contact with an alien species, or maybe it represents human knowledge, and one day you will, like, have your own ideas about what this means. And then it cuts to them building, like, bottle rockets together, and they have, like, NASA caps on, and he recites the John F. Kennedy speech about, like, we go to the moon and do the other things in this decade, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. It's like, it cuts to that, and then it cuts to Mulder coming into his son's room in the middle of the night and seeing his son being abducted by aliens in the exact same way that his sister was, which is, like, the kid's whole character motivation. And then, like, cuts to Mulder sitting in this room staring at this picture of, like, baby William. and like it just like slowly fades to black, and that's the end of the episode. Like I almost fucking cried.
Holy fuck!
It was so good. Like it was so heartbreaking. It was so on point with those characters. And like again, it's like, and it's the performances. Like it is so David Duchovny so captures Mulder 14 years later, where the world has changed around him, and like he has grown old, and he's kind of grown bitter and cynical, and is no longer, he maybe doesn't want to believe as much as he used to because of how much the world has changed and how like fucked he's been by that world. And like they so capture that idea, and Scully has a bit of that, but she's doing a little bit better than Mulder is. So there's that. That's episode 2. Episode 2 is great. Then episode 3 is the best one so far, and it's probably going to be the best one in the run because it's written by Darren Morgan, who wrote what is probably the best episode of the X-Files ever, which is Clyde Barkman's Final Repose, which is the Emmy-winning episode of the X-Files. And this one it's called Mulder and Scully Meet the Weremonster, and it's like completely a comedy episode, which was pretty rare back in the day, but like they were always some of the best, and Morgan wrote 2 of the best comedy episodes they had. And it's just, I also don't want to like explain what the episode is because it's so funny, and explaining anything about it gives away the joke. But
I kind of just knowing that I'll get to it one day, I don't want to know anything.
Yeah, it's like, it's a Monster of the Week episode, and the thing that Darren Morgan did as a writer, and he only ever wrote 4 episodes, and he wrote 1 episode in season 2 and 3 in season 3, and then he was like kind of went away from the show. And he's almost written nothing. I think he wrote a couple of episodes for Millennium, the X-Files spinoff, and that's it. But he is a fantastic writer, and the thing he does with the X-Files is that he understands like the internal workings of the show, and like what makes the characters tick, and what makes like the mechanisms of the show tick, of like the truth is out there, I want to believe stuff. Like he understands that so intimately, and all of his episodes like deconstruct like the fundamentals of the show in different ways, and he brings that like again full force now. And it like Mulder and Scully Meet the Weremonster really gets into Mulder in particular, and how Mulder has changed, and how the world has changed around him. And like the ways in which the world has been demystified by the internet and like the advancement of scientific knowledge. And there's a scene like at the beginning of the episode where Mulder's in the old X-Files office again because they've reopened the X-Files for like the 5th time. And he's going through old X-Files, and he's like saying, it's like, oh, look at this, like this, I thought this was like, it's like signs of a UFO landing on this like rocky shelf in the middle of Norway. It's like, no, it turns out like this was just caused by a freak like element of like water expanding when it freezes into ice, which makes these very unique cracks. And like we've explained that it's just water. And it's like he's going through like this set of like 5 or 6 different X-Files of stuff that he would always do in the past, and be like pull this thing out to Scully and be like, well, look at this. This is probably evidence of like spontaneous human combustion. And like he had this encyclopedic knowledge of the X-Files that he would like go in and like look at old cases. And this, he's just like throwing them away, being like, nope, this is like explained. This was nothing. Like I have spent my entire life trying to solve these things, and like giving into this and like wanting to find out the truth. And it turns out that the truth is like the most mundane thing you could ever find. And the episode takes that idea and runs with it in the most bizarre, insane way you could possibly imagine, where it turns out the truth is mundane, but maybe the truth being mundane is what makes the truth spectacular or something. And it's
that
fucking
sounds so
hilarious.
good.
It's amazing. It's a classic episode of television. And even if the rest of like the next 3 episodes are terrible, I don't care, because like the fact that we got 1 great episode of the X-Files out of this alone is spectacular and amazing to me, and I never would have guessed that. The fact that we've got like 2 pretty good ones and 1 amazing one is unbelievable to me.
Well, and we're recording this literally as the 4th one is airing.
Yeah.
And I just saw on Twitter before we started that people are saying it's amazing too. So
yeah, the preview from the last episode looked like it was going to be one of their like more intense horror ones.
And I think it's Glenn Morgan doing this one.
Yeah.
Glenn and Darren Morgan both wrote for the show, and yeah, so that's cool. By the way, I looked up Mark Snow. Has not done a lot of other stuff. He did score Smallville, so he was on that for a while.
So that's, I guess that takes up your time, probably.
And I'm just seeing on his resume, I don't know if he actually scored the movie, but it says, Ernest Saves Christmas.
Great. So he's involved in some way. I don't know. I love Mark Snow. Like, it was
the X-Files theme is like one of the best pieces of like movie or TV music ever.
And there's like... but like it's also then because he obviously does all the atmospheric music as well that plays throughout the episodes, and those are like he does a good job at that. And it's something where it's like, again, it's something where this 10th season just feels like the X-Files in so many ways, and it's even down to that of like it's the same. It's not this. They're not the same tracks, but it's the exact same kind of music that would play on old episodes of the X-Files. And it's like the fact that this just feels like season 10 of the X-Files, and it happens to have been made 14 years later, is 100% what I wanted this to be. And I didn't even hope it could. Like, I had no real high expectations for this. Like, I was always going to watch it because I love the X-Files, but I didn't necessarily think it would be that good because the 2008 movie was not bad, but it wasn't amazing. Like, it was, like, okay in such a way that, like, it was kind of disheartening that it was just okay.
And it was a movie that was stuck in between such a rock and a hard place in being all they could do at the time, but they had unfinished threads from the show, and they had a desire to do a standalone, and then it was kind of not what anyone wanted.
Yeah, and it didn't have, like, a particularly big budget or anything like that, and it just sort of came out. It's like, again, it's if you're a fan of the X-Files, it's absolutely worth watching. It's a good movie, but it's like, there's something that you wanted it to be a great movie, and it was never going to be a great movie. But this is, like, this is TV. This is where the X-Files, like, lives and breathes. This is where its heart is, and, like, these guys still know how to do it, and they're, like, bringing it 100%, so...
I love that, and
yeah, it's great.
It's awesome, and it had huge ratings.
Yes, which is amazing. I love that.
So I imagine it's going to come back, and I think this would be a cool format if just every couple of years they did another 6 episodes, and even now that they've done these 6, they won't probably have to do the throat clearing next time of like that premiere, and maybe they could just hit the ground running with more standalones. Because if you're just doing 6 episodes of pop, you don't have to reopen the X-Files every time.
Yeah.
So maybe you can...
That would be great, though, if, like, at the season finale, they close the X-Files down again. It's like, fuck, now we have to reopen the X-Files again.
Yeah, no, but it would be cool. Because it's not a show that ever needs to have a definitive ending.
No, like, it's something where, like, people listen to this, if you're not someone who knows a lot about the X-Files and hasn't watched a lot of the old stuff, like... I would say you don't need to watch the season premiere, and you probably don't need to watch the season finale, because as far as I know, episode 5 will also be a standalone Monster of the Week episode. Like, you can absolutely watch the Monster of the Week episodes on their own, like, with only, like, cursory knowledge of who the characters are, and get plenty of entertainment out of it. Like, obviously, I'm going to get more with, like, my intense knowledge of the X-Files, but episode 2 and 3 can absolutely be enjoyed on their own, and I would highly recommend just watching them that way. Like, there's... Particularly episode 3, I think, is an episode that deserves to be watched. Because if you understand anything about who Mulder is, like, that's all you need to know. Like, you need to have seen, like, 5 episodes of The X-Files, and you know enough about Mulder to get the jokes in Mulder and Scully Meet the Were-Monster.
Which, again, I love that they titled it that.
That's a great title.
Just because, like, everything's so homogenized with titles these days, and they just got that past the network, and they just named an episode Mulder and Scully Meet the Were-Monster. Fucking brilliant.
And they say were-monster and not werewolf for very specific reasons that if you watch the episode, you will understand.
I can't wait. I mean, I kind of like that. I know I have mixed feelings on that we're in this era of a lot of shows coming back, but at the same time, there's shows from an era of television I kind of want to return, because we're in this awesome golden age of TV, and I don't want to complain. But I just feel like all the great TV we've had has pushed away a certain kind of good TV.
Yeah.
And it's too bad, because they could totally coexist.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, I don't need Breaking Bad to go away to make room for the X-Files.
No.
They can totally coexist, obviously.
Although it would be great if Vince Gilligan could take a small break from Better Call Saul so he can write an episode of the X-Files again.
I know, and I hope maybe if they do more X-Files, they could find the time for that.
Yeah.
Because I bet because this was just, I mean, it's airing at the same time as Better Call Saul. That would always have been impossible. But they could probably let him do it at some point.
Yeah, because like him not writing an episode is like probably is one of the most conspicuous like writers not returning.
Yeah,
it'd be great to see him back because he wrote some of the best on the original run.
Yeah, so and I'm sure he'd be up for it if they just scheduled it differently. So anyway, that's what was I say? Like there's okay, I have not talked about this on the podcast before, but I have an intense love for the show Gilmore Girls. It's a great show. Don't laugh.
I know almost nothing about it. Okay. I'm not going to laugh.
It's a fantastic show. And it's also like it's not a 90s show. It started in 2000. So it was 2000, 2007. But it's from that, it's kind of like the last great American Family show.
Sure,
it's just a 22 episode a year show about this small town and this interesting family unit. And it's really funny, but also warm and I think very smart in kind of some of the, not really political points, but social points it has to make. Okay, it's just a great show. Great, it's the kind of show that just would never get made today. Ever. Because you don't do 22 episode a year shows when you do their cop procedurals, when you do their boring cop procedurals, and, that kind of thing. It would just never be made. But they're bringing it back. Netflix is doing 4 episodes. They're doing basically 4 90-minute TV movies with the original creators who got kicked off and didn't get to do the final season. So it's kind of cool they get to come back and finish the show the way they want to.
Final season.
Yes, so they can do... And again, we'll probably just have to call it Season 8, but it would be weird because it's a different format and everything. But I like that that's coming back because... And I just wonder if you get enough of these, maybe a new show will come out that just gets to use those values.
Yeah.
And we could just get back to some of that. Because I don't think the death of networks needs to necessitate the death of some of those models.
No.
At all. Yeah. And I like that areas like Netflix exist for it. I like that Fox is in dire straits enough that they had to make more X-Files, you know. I wonder, like, honestly, if in 5 years the X-Files would even be airing on Fox. Like, I could totally see Netflix wanting to make more if they could, you know,
I mean, because I've been going, because they have all of the X-Files on Netflix, so I've been going back to the well and picking out some of my favorite episodes to rewatch.
But, I mean, I think there will definitely be more X-Files because, not just this, but, like, the Blu-rays just came out. They did the HD remasters, so the whole show is popular again. Not that it ever, I guess, wasn't popular, but it was just out of the public eye.
Yeah, but it's resurged in a really big way, in a way that, like, I was not expecting. Like, I have my intense love for the X-Files, but I felt like the general temperature around the X-Files was pretty cold these days. Like, it didn't feel like it was something like primed for a revival.
And the last movie flopped, and it flopped hard. So,
but yeah, maybe it's the right time that, like, it's 2016. Like, we're coming up on 2020. Maybe it's time like that the 90s is like in full swing for its nostalgia hit. And if that nostalgia hit means more X-Files, I am 100% behind that. Like, I don't fucking care. I will complain about any other reboot and like how there's no creativity and nothing new anymore. I will complain about that until we start complaining about new X-Files, and then it's like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. We're getting more X-Files. Shut the fuck up.
Well, it is. It's like, that's why I'm singling out like X-Files and Gilmore Girls, because these are evergreen shows that don't need... They're just about kind of... Gilmore Girls is just about the lives of people. It doesn't need to end until they're dead. And X-Files is about these two characters and these crazy scenarios they encounter. It doesn't need to end until they're dead. So you can just keep going, and that's great. There's no... I'm not saying they should be doing 22 a year still. Obviously not.
Yeah.
But just these little revivals. Totally, that's fun. That's fine, you know. And yes, there's stupid shit with this. We could make fun of Fuller House, which is Netflix's other 90s reboot, which I just... What the hell? But with the bad comes the good sometimes. So very good. And in 3 weeks, we'll check back and see what you think of the finale and everything and the back half of the season. I'm interested to hear how it goes. But yeah, fun that there's X-Files in the world, even if I have nothing against it. I haven't encountered it yet much. Yeah. But I know it's awesome, and the people who love it, and I'm glad that it's there for you.
Yeah.
It's cool.
I still can't believe that it's good. Like, it's still, like, I'm still sort of, like, pinching myself, because it seems like it's impossible.
Yep. All right, so let's go through a couple of little pieces of news.
Okay.
Just before we get to our main game reviews. I just have it on the list because I wanted to briefly mention it. They announced Lego Star Wars 7, Star Wars The Force Awakens.
And which is actually Lego Star Wars 3 or 4, because I think they made a
Clone
Wars one.
They did a Clone Wars one, yeah. And, I mean, those are great games.
Yes, yeah, I really love Lego Star Wars 2, which is the original trilogy one.
Yeah, and I put it on pre-order just on Amazon because I got my discount, and it was the collector's edition, and it's got cool packaging. So, I could cancel it by the time it comes out, but I've got it for now, and I really might play it, because I think I've not played a Lego game since, I think, Lego Star Wars 2.
Yeah.
And I loved Force Awakens. But I just wanted to mention it because the trailer where they announced it was like a shot-for-shot remake of the Force Awakens teaser.
Yeah.
It was so great. Like, it brought me back to those days in high school loving the Lego Star Wars approach to things. They haven't lost it. That was really funny.
Yeah, yeah. It's cool to see, like, because I really only played Lego Star Wars 2. I played a little bit of the first one and never played any of the other Lego games. And seeing that, like, that franchise go in different directions, like, it, like, kind of, like, I lost interest in it. But there is something about, like, it feels like they're going back to the more classic style that they had back then.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I think it could be good. I'm definitely curious. And the collector's edition comes with a Finn collectible, so I thought that was cool. And a gold packaging. So I might get it, might not, but we'll see. It looks like it could be fun.
Yeah.
And I've been learned by being burned by the Fire Emblem Fates special edition that if you want a special edition, pre-order it as soon as you can.
Yeah.
I'm so sad. Oh well.
You should have known that beforehand.
I should have. That's a brief Fire Emblem Fates update, which, if you don't know, is like, other than Persona 5, my most anticipated game of the year. And I'm at the point it's in 2 weeks, and I'm just like dying from excitement because I now have it. I've never done this. I preloaded a Nintendo game on my 3DS. They have preloading.
I didn't even know. Yeah.
And I do it, and it's actually pretty cool on the 3DS. It's an icon on your screen. You can put it wherever you want. So I have it there right next to Awakening, and I look at it and it says 13 days left. I'm like, I want to play it now. And I want to play it and then spend like $50 more getting the other campaigns because you're really milking us. But I don't care because it's Fire Emblem and it's fucking worth it. Cannot wait for that game.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be great.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's that. I played a little bit of the Street Fighter V beta. They had a beta on January 30th and 31st, and I just did a quick pre-order on Amazon because you can cancel it if you want.
Yeah.
And I got the code, and so because it was a pre-order only beta. And so I got the code and downloaded it, and you could actually play it outside of the beta period. You could do like the tutorial and just a basic local kind of training match.
Oh, cool.
And then they had online during the beta period. So I went through the tutorial, and then I did a couple of online matches where I got my ass handed to me because...
As expected.
I don't really play Street Fighter, so there was no way I was going to win.
Yeah.
I came pretty close once, and I was just like, that's just the moral victory. I held my own.
Yeah, you put up a fight.
Yes.
Is the best thing you can hope for.
Yeah, so, that's a game I'm very curious about. It looks gorgeous on the PS4. Nice, smooth 60 frames per second. The fights look good. The character models are great. The arena looked really cool. And for the tutorial, it was Ryu and Ken kind of having this conversation, and it was all done kind of comic book style. I really liked how it looked. Cool. So that was fun. And I think it could have like a fun just story mode if they do it like that. So, I don't know. I'm still not sure if I'll actually play the game when it comes out, if I'll keep my pre-order or not. It'll kind of depend on, I think, what the larger reviews are and if I feel like I have room in my life for a fighting game like that.
Yeah.
Because it's not totally my thing, but I would be interested in trying to make it my thing because this is just a big release and it's kind of the next big PS4 release on the horizon. So, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious about it for sure. They released their like sort of launch trailer thing that it looks really cool. It's a really great like 2-minute cinematic kind of thing.
Oh, and I will say this. Plays really well on the DualShock 4. Like, it just felt good. I felt like I could pull off moves I haven't been able to do in Street Fighter before. Just the sticks and the buttons on the DualShock, like, that will never be perfectly ideal for that kind of game, but it felt good.
Yeah, that was like... And I think that might be actually one of the things that led to me not playing a lot of fighting games, was that one, like, both of us are a little bit too young to have, like, been in arcades during their heyday, which is where fighting games are really from. And then also, like, the Xbox 360 controller is really bad for fighting games, because the one fighting game that, like, I can kind of play okay is Marvel vs. Capcom 2, because I used to play that in an arcade that was by my house a long time ago, a lot when I was a kid. So I can kind of play that. Like, I can play Spider-Man and, like, Venom and Captain America and Ryu okay in that game. And I got the, like, Xbox Live Arcade version of that. It's like, I found it, like, practically unplayable, because part of it was, like, I'm just not used to playing that game on a gamepad. But it's like, the Xbox 360 controllers, like, D-pad and everything was so terrible. It's like, I just couldn't do moves anymore. I couldn't play the game. So maybe the PS4, maybe the DualShock 4 rectifies that issue, and I can maybe play fighting games again.
It's got a good tutorial, and I think the controls are pretty clear. I wouldn't necessarily say they're simplified, that they haven't gotten rid of half-circle turn or anything.
Like quarter-circle punches,
But it's clearer. Like, I feel like it's more accessible than it maybe was last time around. Because I've played some of those, Super Street Fighter 4, and it is dense and, impenetrable.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's like the 5th release of that game.
Yeah. So, this could be a fun one to get in on the ground floor with. But it's also coming out the same week as Fire Emblem Fates, and I will be down a dark rabbit hole, because that's like 3 40-hour campaigns I have to play. But if any series would make me do that, it's fucking Fire Emblem. Love that series. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, we'll talk about another fighting game in just a minute.
Okay.
But first off, our last bit of news. Sean, did you see the trailer for Detective Pikachu?
Yes, the Japanese trailer for Meitante Pikachu.
The weirdest 3DS game of all time.
And what may be the greatest, 2 minutes of Pokemon-related footage
ever
made.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you're a fan of the modern Sherlock show. Because it's basically, the first half of the trailer is a weird, sort of stylistic homage to, that modern Sherlock thing, down to the music and everything. And it's like a lot of very moody shots of a city at night that's, got vaguely Victorian architecture. And then you have this silhouette of a Pikachu, and it's like walking in the shadows in the distance and stuff. And it's playing that very bouncy sort of music from that Sherlock show. And then in the last half of the trailer, you get into the actual game footage, and that's where you come to the stunning, horrifying, life-shattering realization that not only does this Pikachu talk in human Earth tongue, but he does it like not in like a super high pitched like Pikachu, not that kind of voice like talking human speech. It's like the gruffest, most like down to earth, like gritty, like smokes 5 packs of cigarettes a day, fucking just like "Ore wa Pikachu da," fucking Japanese voice I have ever heard coming out of this tiny little Pikachu with the little like Sherlock hat. It's like it's the most amazing and horrifying thing I've ever seen.
I'm genuinely kind of excited to play this because it seems like they know what they're doing. Like, it doesn't seem like an accident. It seems like they know how silly it is, and they're really just taking advantage of it. It's so great.
But there is something that's just, like, really sort of, like, gut-punchingly wrong about, like, that's, like, Pikachu's art. I mean, I get that Meowth in the cartoon, like, could speak to Jesse and James. Like, he could talk. Like, I will accept that because Meowth is evil. It's like, but Pikachu's like the, like, ultimate good guy Pokemon. And there's just something about, like, it's, like, impure. It's like Pikachu's, like, sullying his soul by speaking, like, man talk. It's, like, not right. A Pikachu's, like pure, beautiful, like, just a pure white soul being that shouldn't, like, it's like how, like, angels don't touch the ground, you know, because there's, like, the dirt would, like, dirty their feet. It's like Pikachu shouldn't be talking man speak. It's wrong. It's just wrong.
Now, did you see the best part of all of this? Which was the Danny DeVito version.
Oh, yes, yeah, the fan-made thing.
Where they wanted Danny DeVito to play Pikachu, and they just took a bunch of lines of Danny DeVito from, like, It's Always Sunny and lots of other things, and had him speaking for Detective Pikachu. I just about died watching that, because it's weirdly a kind of perfect voice for him.
Yeah, it's a good approximation of what the Japanese one is going for as well. Actually, the best part of the entire trailer is, like, the very brief shot where you see the great Detective Pikachu talking to another Pikachu.
Yes.
And then that Pikachu responds by going, Pikachu! And you're like, wait a minute. Back up here. Are you fucking telling me it's like, this is a world where, like, other Pikachus exist, but those other Pikachus are like the Pikachus I know that, like, can only say Pikachu, and there's just this one Pikachu that can speak man talk and, like, can walk around and, like, has the soul of Sherlock Holmes in him or something, however they justify what they've done to those monsters.
I just desperately hope if they localize this, they get, like, some big-name voice actor to do Pikachu, like Troy Baker or Nolan North. Nolan North is Pikachu.
Yeah.
That'd be so great. Or just subtitle the Japanese, because, fuck, that's a great voice.
Yeah, yeah.
So who knows if it'll come out here. But, man.
Like, and the best part about the trailer is, like, at the very, very end, like, there's sort of, like, almost like the tagline of it or something that they play that they show at the end of the trailer in Japanese. It basically translates to, this is a Pikachu like you've never seen before. It's like, it's Mita koto ga nai Pikachu da. It's like, and they are 100% right. This is Pikachu like I have never seen him before. This is a completely untread territory. So for the character of Pikachu. It's crazy. Everyone should watch that trailer. It's so weird.
No, it's fantastic. All right, let's move on to our final bit of Nintendo thing for today and kind of transitioning into, we have a couple games to talk about.
Yes.
And this is the final announced DLC for Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. Came out this week. And it is basically 2 characters, Corrin from the upcoming Fire Emblem Fates, which is a little weird because, I mean, it makes sense in Japan because that game's been out for like a year.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
But in here, like, we haven't seen Corrin yet, so I don't know why he has the moves he does and stuff.
It's like when, like, the video game version of a movie comes out, like, a week before the movie does, and then you know the entire plot of the movie because you played the game.
And it's definitely getting me hyped for Fates. Like, it's a good release strategy here, I'll say that.
Yeah.
So the Corrin's been added, and Bayonetta from the Bayonetta series, which is sort of a Wii exclusive now, has been added. She was the character that, of the ones they could realistically do, won all the polls. So this was a fan-demanded character. And Bayonetta brings with her a stage, which is like this clock tower stage from her game. So you got all of that. And this was the final bit of DLC. And I want to talk about it in a minute, because it's really cool, and I have praise to sing about it. But we have to do another installment in Jonathan Has Technical Difficulties with the Wii U Theater.
Okay, great. It's been a while.
Yes.
This is our own little revival series.
I mean, you remember our classic episode where I explained setting up the Wii U and what that took?
I very much enjoyed that.
Okay, I own the basic Wii U console. There's 2 you can get, the white basic and the black deluxe.
Yeah.
The black deluxe comes with 32 gigabytes of storage.
Yes.
Not a lot. The white comes with 8. And of those
Which
8...
is like what the cheapest version of like the original iPhone came with.
Yes. And yeah, iPhones aren't even sold with 8 anymore. No. Anyway, so... And you don't have access to all 8 either, because like the system UI takes... It doesn't take up like a ton, but it takes up some. So anyway, I have been... For a while, I was fine with that, because I just bought everything on disc, and then all the virtual console games, they're like GBA and N64, they're like 10 megabytes.
Yeah.
So it was fine. But then eventually DLC started coming out for Mario Kart 8, for Smash Bros, for some other things, so I had to get some extra storage. So I just got like a 32 gigabyte thumb drive and stuck it in the back of my Wii U.
Fair enough.
And it was really what it allowed me to do was clean off a lot of other stuff like the apps and the virtual console stuff and have room on the main system storage for DLC. Right. Well, with every Smash Bros DLC, because there's been a lot over the last year, like honestly, I forgot to do it. I honestly could have on my top 10 last year listed just Smash Bros DLC because it was so good over 2015.
Right.
But anyway, so this is the last bit. So, but over 2015, what happened is I had Smash Bros installed. I have the disc, but the DLC and save data was installed on the main system storage. That was 8 gigs. And it kept getting bigger, and I had to move more stuff off of the main system storage to the flash drive. And I try not to keep too much on the flash drive because that's not really what you're supposed to use a flash drive for. It'll fail if I think I play too many games off it. But anyway, so I kept having to move stuff. And then finally, this week, the only thing I had on the system storage was Smash Bros. By the time this DLC came out. Bought the DLC, went to the download screen, and I didn't have enough room to install it. So this means that if you own the basic Wii U console, you can clear everything else out, and there's not enough storage in the system to store all the Smash Bros. DLC.
Yeah, then it's just the DLC because you have the game
just
on a
the
disc.
DLC. Game's on a disc.
Okay, yeah.
Just the DLC.
Shit.
DLC and patches. You cannot store it all on the main system. And
God damn.
So that alone is crazy enough, right?
Yeah.
Here's the crazier part. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll move it to the flash drive. Easy enough.
Yeah.
I go to hit move, and it says, cannot be moved while the game is updating. And I am in this crazy catch-22 where it won't let me stop the update to move it, but it won't let me update it because I can't move it.
Right.
So it's like, I'm fucked either way.
Yeah.
And so for a couple minutes, I'm just like, well, fuck, what am I going to do? Can I literally just not download the DLC? Is it like in a perpetual state? Because it's not literally updating right now because it can't.
Yeah.
It can't write to the disc. So I'm like, well, what the hell am I going to do? So finally I just, like, maybe this will work. And I turned off all network functions, had it forget my Wi-Fi and that. Because that's how you have to do it, by the way. It's crazy. And then turned the console off, like hard restarted it. Because it's got a low power mode like the Xbox and PS4 do too. And then started it up again, no network, and I went in there and it allowed me to move it. But I had to move it, and then I moved some stuff back from the flash drive over. And then finally it downloaded and installed the DLC, and I was able to play it. But as I suspected, it doesn't run great off the flash drive. Right. It causes some like clipping in the loading screens and stuff, and just it's a little slower. So I will probably have to buy a hard drive for my Wii U. And hard drives you can basically only buy in a terabyte or bigger now.
Yeah.
Even though I only need like 10 gigs. It's fucking crazy. My other option, honestly, is just to buy the black Wii U and sell my white Wii U and then just have enough that I'll never need to upgrade within the little 32 gigs. Like, it's such a weird catch-22.
Yeah, it is a bizarre situation you're in. It is like weird to think about like 8 gigabytes of memory for
nothing.
A modern video game system. It's like, yeah, that's because it's like the Xbox 360 back when they came out with had like the 20 gigabyte hard drive when it launched, which like you really only had like 12 gigabytes of memory on it, like when like all the other like OS stuff was taken care of. But
I'll do you one better. My the newest version of the Apple TV, I bought that.
Yeah,
32 gigs in that thing. And I'm not going to install that much on it, but I'll never use that much, but at least 32.
Yeah, it's like you could like have a couple of movies and like music on there.
And games if you want to put some of those on there. Yeah, so it's just crazy.
That's like practically no memory whatsoever in today's world, which is weird to think about because memory has advanced so much that like I can remember when like 1 gigabyte seemed like like more memory than you could ever dream of. You know, now it's like 8 gigabytes. It's like that's nothing. Like that is like the smallest game I have on my PS4 hard drive is like 8 gigabytes.
I know. It's nuts. And it's funny because none of the current gen consoles came with enough storage, but they didn't come with 8 gigabytes.
Yeah, it's like at least 500 gigabytes is enough memory that like you're like, you can't keep nearly everything you have on there at once, but like you can keep enough things on there at once that you don't run into what he ran into, where it's like, I literally just can't have this anymore.
It's like, and this is, Smash Bros. Is their biggest game on that console, by far, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, that and Mario Kart 8, and you can't keep all the DLC for it on the basic version of their console. It's ludicrous.
Yeah, so it's like, you're obviously not the only person that would run into this issue.
No, I saw the next day Kotaku did a write-up on it, because it was so crazy, and I'm like, yep, I'm one of the people who encountered that.
Yeah, because there has got to be like a fair number of people that only bought a Wii U specifically just to play Smash Brothers, because that's the kind of game that Smash Brothers is, and like that's the kind of audience it has. And and then obviously if you're only going to buy a console to play one game, you're going to like buy the cheapest version of that console, not realizing that that's just going to like fuck you in the future because all the DLC is going to be too much.
It's so tough because I love my Wii U. When I'm just playing it, I love it. I've got lots of great games on there. It's really fun. But it is this, whenever I have to get into the nitty-gritty of it, it's such a frustration. And it's such a, at least I have this podcast, so it's always a funny frustration to me because I can turn it into humor. But if I didn't, I think I'd be more frustrated.
Is my Mii still on that Wii U?
This is the other story I wanted to tell.
Okay.
When we've told before about Sean's scary, fucked up Mii he made. The best thing is that sometimes when the system launches, your Miis will be on the TV and your menu will be on the gamepad. On the TV, the Miis will be there and they'll be waving. Your Mii is kind of slow, where the other two, Thomas and I, will start waving, and then he'll raise his arm like a second later and start, but do it a little slower. So it's like he's like retarded in the back trying to figure out how to wave.
It's like he's it's like an android, and he doesn't understand. Like he's like trying to copy the social impulses around him so that you don't suspect that he's just going to kill you in like 5 years. But it's a long con.
It's funny because here's the thing. So I do think, weirdly enough, the most practical solution, honestly, is probably just to buy a black Wii U and have the deluxe, so it's just taken care of. So the console, I can just have it for years to come. Because there's a lot. Mostly, honestly, I use it for the virtual console. Like their GBA library is great and getting better. They just released Mario Advance 4, which is Mario 3, which is the best version of Mario 3. So if you love that game, get that. It's awesome. Anyway, and my GBA cartridges like died of that, so I'm glad to have it now. But anyway, what was I saying? Like, that's probably the most practical, but here's the problem. I honestly would pull the trigger and do it, except I know getting my stuff from my current Wii U to the new one would be like, I'd have to block off my weekend to figure that out.
Just like put on like the lab coat and like slap on like the gloves.
Yes.
It's like you're going to have a real day.
But let's talk about the DLC.
Okay.
I got Corrin and Bayonetta and the stage. The stage is really cool, and it's one of the things, I don't know how much about the DLC I've talked about. Like, did I talk about Cloud when he came out?
I think a little bit.
Yeah, because Cloud is an awesome fighter. His stage is amazing. And it just kind of defines all the DLC they've done, the stages and the fighters. It feels like really good DLC in that they had more time to put into these characters, so they are collectively some of the best characters in the game.
Right.
Even the ones who were returning, like Roy, they brought back from the Fire Emblem series. He's a better version of Roy than you got in Melee, because Roy in Melee was kind of a Marth clone.
Yeah.
Roy in this is sort of like Marth meets Ike, where he's got kind of the strength of Ike, but the speed of Marth, and he's a really fun character to use. He's probably the best, just practical fighter of the Fire Emblem bunch. So that was pretty cool.
Cool.
And, you got some classic stages, you got some new ones. They were all done really well. We finally got some of my favorite N64 stages back for the first time ever. Really glad to have those again. It's made the game better at every stage. And then I think with that Cloud one, they outdid themselves, because Cloud is a very unique fighter, but he feels like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, but also a Smash Bros. Character. So he's really fun to use. His stage is just like visually unbelievable. And the version on the 3DS is like, obviously downplayed a little bit, but still, I can't believe some of the stuff they get out of the 3DS on this game. It's incredible. But then, so for this one, they have Corrin and Bayonetta, and I think they are two of the best fighters in the game. Like, and I have not played Bayonetta. I want to someday, because they're supposed to be good, and it's on the Wii U, so might as well. It's one of the 5 games I can play on the Wii U. And then Corrin, obviously, I'm going to know Corrin in a couple days here with Fire Emblem Fates. But, like, Corrin is by far the most different of the Fire Emblem characters, of which there are 6 now, which I think is hilarious. There's 6 Fire Emblem characters. There's Marth, Ike, Roy, Lucina, Corrin, and someone else.
Was there, like, the main character from Awakening?
Yes, he's in there, Robin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
like how I knew that and you didn't.
Here's the thing. I forget about Robin because in the game, he's a creative character.
Right.
And my Robin looks nothing like the Robin in Smash Bros., so I don't associate that as being Robin. It would be like if I don't know, they had Commander Shepard in a fighting game,
Yeah.
I would not recognize him.
Yeah, it's like it's just like default Shepard from like the ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense. But anyway, so yeah, like Corrin is the most different. He uses a sword, but he also has these kind of transformations. He and she, because there's male and female, which is cool that they do that.
Oh, so Corrin is like the main character from the new game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, you have Corrin. He's got kind of this like dragon attack. He transforms. He can kind of fly almost. He's a very different for a Fire Emblem character, but he's very powerful, very fast. He's really fun to use. Bayonetta is crazy. Like from what
she should be.
As I've gathered from those games, even having not played them, like this is a pitch perfect recreation. Like her smash moves is summoning a giant fist from another dimension and punching with it. It's great. She's really cool. She's got a lot of mobility. Like you can just tell, like in all the DLC characters are like this, where these would reward really getting in depth and learning the characters because you could be really good with them. So, and I like that. And then her stage is very cool. It's really visually adventurous, kind of like the Cloud one was. And again, it runs on 3DS surprisingly well. That's the best thing about 3DS Smash Bros. Is it's like that game looks so good on 3DS. I salivate at the thought of what Nintendo could do if they had something even Vita powered.
Right.
Let alone what the Vita would be like if they had made it now. You know, because they can pull a lot out of a little.
Yeah.
On that system, so it's crazy. 3DS, much easier to install your DLC on because you can just pop an SD card in there. It's great. Anyway,
that's weird.
So yeah, I like the DLC a lot, and you know, I finally got to have my 8-player Smash where I put in all 6 Fire Emblem characters and had all the Fire Emblem characters fight. It's great. So stuff like that. And Bayonetta is just fun to have in there, and it feels like she should be in there because she's kind of part of the Nintendo family now.
Sure, in a weird way.
Yeah, it's a good character to have in the game, I feel like. And yes, the character selection and stage selection screens have gotten ridiculous because there's so much in there.
Have they like just like made it so you like page over to a new page or something, or do they just like
do that?
They just like squeezed all the panels?
They've squeezed everyone in there for the characters on Wii U, and there's honestly plenty of room because it's a big HD screen. You can do that. For the stages, it's 2 pages now, and then on the 3DS, it's 2 pages for both. But it's funny because they still have, basically the 3DS does it where all the original game characters are on one screen, and then the DLC characters are on the second screen. So the DLC characters' icons are way bigger.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of funny. But yeah, it's great. I mean, it's almost a little sad to me that they're going to stop doing DLC for this game. And I get it. You can't do it forever. And there probably is a point where you have to cut it off because, you know, you're just going to run dry. But they've done a great job, and I think it's not necessarily like they've made Smash Bros. A better game since it came out with that, because the underlying mechanics are the same. But I do think they've just made it a more full and fleshed out game, and it's been very joyous to be able to have an excuse to come back to the game over and over with these new characters and have fun with it.
Yeah, it does, because Smash Brothers was a game that I, like, when I was playing it on, like, because I mostly played Melee on the GameCube, that it was fun, like, to come back every now and then and, like, just, like, play with friends and stuff and just sort of like get it. It's like a game you could keep on coming back to because the mechanics are so simple that you could go away from it for a long time and come back. That does seem like it would be really nice, especially with how fleshed out the characters seem to be, that like you have like a very strong excuse to come back and something like new to play with when you do come back to the game.
Yeah, and I've never had, you know, I think the DLC you could argue is a little overpriced, but I've never had any compunctions about paying for it. It's totally been worth it to me. You know, paying $5 for a new character in a game like that's really worth it. It's like, that's worth it to me at the end of the day.
Yeah, if you play a lot of that game, like that, another character adds a lot of value, because I think Smash Brothers is the kind of game where you don't like just pick one character and only play as that one character the way you might in like Street Fighter V. That's like you want to play as every character, except for maybe like Jigglypuff's not so much fun to play as most of the time. But
I've got to having fun with Jigglypuff, but the game's great. And I have not had the chance to play these characters with someone else. I've just been playing by my own and with the computer and stuff. And it's fun. I'm excited for when my brother is down again, because we always play Smash Bros. Together. But, yeah. And just overall, I mean, honestly, this new Smash Bros. Is so fucking good. It's one of my favorite games ever because it's the best version of one of my favorite series.
Yeah.
And I just love that. That's one of the things. Like, with all that DLC, it's just every time they have done more, it's felt a little more definitive. And that's great, because it already felt pretty definitive when it came out. So, great game. It was great in 2014, great in 2015, and now it's great in 2016.
Nice.
It's had a good shelf life.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's great. Anyway.
It's nice to see, like, Nintendo, like, they're catching up, obviously, because people have been doing this for a long time. But it is nice to see them having caught up and like seeing the potential that you can, like what you can do with DLC.
Oh, yeah.
How you can add to a game.
And the Mario Kart 8 DLC was great too. Like all my favorite Mario Kart 8 tracks are in that DLC. So, and they stopped doing that, I think, middle of last year. But before they did a really good couple chunks of content. So, definitely. And I think maybe the Wii U will just be the period where they figured everything out for whatever the next step is, and the NX could be great. Maybe they'll finally...
Hopefully.
Yeah. It could be. I mean, a lot of the signs are there. The 3DS has been done right almost entirely. So, you know, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, God, it seems like it's not going to be that long until we start actually hearing about the NX. It seems like that would be something around E3 that they would start talking about. I
honestly think that and VR are kind of the two big stories of this year in gaming.
Yeah.
At least on the tech side. But let's talk about some games. We're going to talk about The Witness at the end, because we've both played it, and maybe we'll get into spoilers. I don't know. I don't know if you can spoil that game.
Or maybe all you can do is spoil that game. It's kind of your perspective.
But I just want to mention this quick. I don't have a ton to say on it, I don't think, but I played Gravity Rush Remastered on the PS4. And if you don't know what this is, Gravity Rush is kind of like, it's the most famous and acclaimed PS Vita exclusive.
Yeah, it's like a unique IP on the Vita.
Right. It was a game made by, Sony Entertainment Studios for the Vita.
Yeah.
And I have a Vita, and I have Gravity Rush on there because of PS Plus, but I never could really get into it.
Yeah, me neither.
And part of it was because I felt like I'd like to play this on a console. Well, they did a remastered version because Gravity Rush 2 is coming out later this year for the PS4. And it is for the PS4, runs at 1080p, nice 60 frames per second, looks great, and God, yes, is that a console game. An hour into it, I was like, I can't imagine playing this on the Vita. And I love my Vita.
Yeah.
And I love handheld gaming. That is not a game I would ever want to play that way. I mean, it's a big sort of Arkham-style open-world game, where it's not open-world in like the Witcher Fallout sense, but in the smaller, more contained open world. And it's like you want to be able to be in it and have it on your TV and really see it and have more precise controls. And I am not the first person to say this. Gravity Rush is a great game. Just a great game. It feels like a Sony classic. It feels like the kind of design ethos you would get in the PS1, PS2 era, where it's like, that is a PlayStation game, and that it's weird and kind of trippy. And I love that. It really feels like that, but with modern technology. It looks great on the PS4. I would say it looks more like a PS3 game, but it's running at 60 frames per second and looks, really performs really solidly.
And the art style is gorgeous. Like, it
so
always
gorgeous.
has been.
It's this comic book art style. My favorite parts of the game, just to look at, are the cutscenes, because they're done as comic book panels, and they look so gorgeous. And one of the things they added for this release is a gallery where you can look through all the art, and that's awesome to have, because the art is great. And then the actual gameplay is like cel-shaded. It honestly looks like a manga come to life, is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
And so it looks really good. And it has one of the most ambitious underlying design elements I've ever seen, which is the gravity shifting. And it's like they commit to that so completely that this open world you navigate by just going all over the place gravity-wise. It's like, when you really think about how that world had to be designed to make use of those mechanics, it's nuts to even try to wrap your head around it. And that game is it's really trippy and fun to play. And the gameplay, I think it's repetitive at some points, but it never really gets boring because you've literally never played anything remotely like it. It is so unique on that level. And I'm really excited for Gravity Rush 2 because I think this is a foundation on which they could build something legitimately just masterful.
Nice.
If they really expand upon it. But loved this release. It's got the game and then all 3 DLC packs that came out for the Vita. And this will tell you how much I liked the game. I didn't just beat the game. I fucking 100%ed it as thoroughly as you possibly can. I got every trophy and all the trophies in the 3 DLC packs too.
Nice.
So I got a lot of trophies playing this game. I collected everything. It's great. And one of the things I like is that the collectibles basically consist of the gems you have to collect to upgrade. So the collectibles help you upgrade your stats.
Nice. Yeah.
That's how it should be. That makes so much more sense than going around and getting just pages of something.
Yeah, they're picking up helix glitches in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And
yeah.
What is this even? It unlocks a 3-second video at the end of the game that it unlocks the mystery of the precursor race.
But you're directly incentivized because everything you collect helps you get better at the game. It's so brilliant. I don't know how more games don't do it.
That's basically what Infamous has always done.
Yeah, I love how Infamous did that, yeah. So, no, it's great. I finally have another Platinum trophy. I've got one on my PS4 and one on my Vita, so that's nice. Speaking of Infamous, I would have had one on my fucking PS4 if it hadn't fucked me, but you all know that story.
Yes.
Anyway, so, really good game. It's a game that is completely, all the voicing is text-based. There's some lines, but it's done in this fake language. It's not Japanese, it's something made up. Yeah. But it's all text-based, and I like games like that. I love The Witcher and it being fully voiced, but if I'm being honest, most of the time I kind of just want something in text, because there's something about that feels so pure to me. It's kind of like moments when I want a silent film.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about it.
Also, it speeds things up.
Yes,
it's nice to, just not have the voice thing at all, because I don't like to skip through voice acting if it's being presented to me. But yeah, it's like a Zelda game. It allows you to just bump, and just read through it really quickly.
Because I'm a very fast reader, so I just get it, But yeah, and I think a lot of character comes through with that. Like the main character, Kat, is an awesome video game protagonist, and it honestly is a throwback to, I think, an older kind of video game design where your character isn't tortured and super in-depth as a protagonist. She's just a really fun character to be the person you play as, and she has a lot of personality, and I love that, and I think that's so nice to have, and I like that Sony is committed to this, what is now a franchise, and they're making a sequel that is presumably much bigger budget and will be on the PS4, and will hopefully get this out to more people, because this is a gem of the PlayStation library at the moment, and if you haven't played it, it's only $30. You definitely should. Sean, I have it on disc if you want to borrow it. If you want to sometime. Yeah. So
I'll play that.
And even if you 100% it as much as I did, it's not that long. And I think if you just played it, it's probably a 10-hour campaign.
Nice.
So it's good, and definitely for $30, totally worth it. So, but yeah, really enjoyed that game, and it was fun to finally play it and realize, yes, I would not have enjoyed this on the Vita. In part because there are certain things that are hard enough to do with the controls on the PS4 I would never have been able to pull off on the Vita with those sticks.
Right.
So
yeah, because there was the Vita, it never really found its footing in that way of it felt like early on it was trying so hard to deliver console games in a portable fashion, which was never a good idea. That Uncharted game is okay, but you just don't want to play it on the Vita. And it seemed like the Gravity Rush was a lot like that, because I have it on PS Plus on there, and I've tried it a couple of times and just couldn't get into it. But
yeah, I think you would on the PS4. You just sink into it because you realize I've played this kind of game on my PS4 before, so it feels right to play it this way. So really fun game. You should definitely check it out. I think it's kind of an unsung work on the PlayStation ecosystem right now. So
nice.
All right, but the big PlayStation hit of the last few weeks is Jonathan Blow's The Witness, the big kind of biggest release of 2016 so far in some ways. Even though it's kind of an indie game.
Yeah. I mean, it's been selling pretty well. For an indie game, it's been selling very well.
Yeah, so I have played a couple hours. I have not gotten super deep into it, but enough that I can talk about it. But Sean, every time I boot up my PS4, you've been playing this.
Well, I've been either playing it or I've had it on in the background while I've actually been watching The X-Files, because this is a game that I have to play 30 minutes of and then hit a puzzle where I'm like, oh, fuck this puzzle. And then I will watch an episode of The X-Files and go back and it's like, oh, wait, that's just the answer to this puzzle.
And I think you have more tenacity with that than I do. What is The Witness, Sean?
The Witness is a hard game to talk about. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's a puzzle game, but it's a very different kind of puzzle game in that the game does not teach you anything. The game tells you nothing, not strictly. Literally the only bit of direct information the game just sort of gives you is the first time you walk up to your first puzzle, the X button prompt appears on screen. And that is it. That is for the entirety of the game. And I have almost I could go to the last area of the game and beat and get a credit sequence as far as I understand how the game ends. I could do that, but there's a lot of other puzzles and optional stuff to do that I'm looking into. But so that's up front, it is a puzzle game in which you have to intuit basically everything about the puzzles. And the puzzles all involve what are basically these line puzzles where you are presented a panel. Though sometimes you're not presented necessarily a panel, but usually you're presented a panel. Sometimes it gets a little tricky. And you're given a panel that there's a spot where you start and a spot where you have to end, and you have to draw a line from the starting point to the end point. And there are different permutations and rule sets you run into based on things that are on the panel or things in the environment that tell you specific ways that you have to complete that sort of maze to solve the puzzle. And then once you solve the puzzle, you are generally then you unlock the ability to go to a harder version of that puzzle until it sort of builds on the concept of that series of puzzles to the point where you beat the final puzzle, and that's sort of set, which unlocks a laser that then you need to beat a certain number of them to unlock 7 lasers to be able to get to the end room, but there are 11 areas overall. I guess is the structure of the game. But it's all
And
just
we
you
should
being
say,
those puzzles.
it's not a puzzle game like Tetris. You're on
No.
an island, and it's a 3D first-person game. It's very much, it's got Myst in its DNA in that way.
Yes, yeah.
You're dropped onto an island, and you have to figure your way around. It's a beautiful fucking island.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
talk
like
about that.
the art direction is gorgeous.
Yeah, so I have gotten one laser.
Yes,
And a little further.
You got because I think I looked at your trophies a while ago to see where you were, and there was like you got the symmetry one, I think.
Okay, it's
Right.
the one where there's all those like dead statues on the top of the.
That's
every one of them. Okay,
That's like there's those dead statues are everywhere. Like you unlocked the one where like you had to do the. Like you would draw a line, and then it would draw another line on the side that was like a reflection of yours. Yeah, that's the symmetry laser.
Okay, yeah, got that.
Yeah, because the trophies because all the trophies in the game are for beating the different areas, except for there are two. That's like one is for beating the game, and one is for beating like I think the super extra hard area. And so the trophies all give names to the different areas. So when I like say that that's the symmetry laser, that's what I'm referring to. Is like the trophies call it that.
Okay. Yeah. So, do you like The Witness? I haven't talked to you about it yet. You've played a lot of it.
I have very complex feelings on The Witness. It's like it's a game I like a lot, and I think like if we had talked about this like 3 days ago, I think I'd be a lot more positive. But the area I'm in right now is using a puzzle mechanic that I think is terrible, where you have to use these Tetris pieces. It's this swamp area.
Oh,
I fucking hate these puzzles.
Okay, that's where I am now, and
Don't do that yet.
Okay.
Go to different areas.
It broke me. I don't know if I honestly thought I might never go back to the game.
Don't do that puzzle set yet.
Here's the thing, because the game...
Go somewhere else.
This is honestly... I really do respect the way the game doesn't give you much.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, and I like that about it. But I got through to that first laser, and then I realized I had no idea where to go, and I kept running into puzzles that I just physically couldn't do yet. Like, I didn't have what I needed.
You didn't know the information that it was presenting.
Yeah. So I finally wound up in that swamp area last night, and it broke me in a couple of ways, and I'll talk about that because it just got me to a point of frustration where I didn't know if I wanted to continue because I had run into so many dead ends, and then this one was so, as you say, like, I fundamentally do not understand the mechanic.
Yeah, and then even I'm at the point where I understand the mechanic, and then when you understand the mechanic, solving the puzzles is a massive pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I really don't like the Tetramino puzzles, but
Yeah. Okay, but go on.
but
Sorry.
you should leave the swamp and go somewhere else. There are a lot of better places to go. Like, and I understand that issue of like, it can be hard to figure out where to go because there are several areas where there's like that I can't finish yet because there are a couple of areas like there's a town and there's a quarry and I can't remember what. Oh, I think and then there's like a treehouse area that I could probably do if I just went to. But the town and the quarry both rely on you knowing how to solve the Tetramino puzzles to actually like progress in them in a way that's like really infuriating.
Because I've seen them all over the place.
Yeah, because exactly, like there are a couple of areas that you can run into that present you those puzzles that you just don't like. If you have not gone to the swamp yet, you simply do not understand anything about the mechanic. And even if you have gone to the swamp, you might not understand anything about the mechanic because it's not intuitive. And so yeah, like that's really frustrating because they like. Those I feel like are the most common random puzzles to find that like are on those puzzle panels, and it's like easily the most frustrating mechanic. But there are a bunch of areas that like don't rely on it at all,
Okay.
like because there are plenty of areas that rely on much more of there are sort of those puzzle types that have the dots in the path that you have to cover up all the dots.
I really like those.
Yeah,
actually.
those are fun, and then there are the ones where you have to like separate out the colors. They're like it's usually black and white, and they sort of like complicate that in some areas. Like those are fun, and then there's like environmental puzzles that are very different, and there's some areas that were like completely on those that like require you to like look at like reflections or stuff to sort of see how to complete the maze. But like but then you have the Tetramino puzzles, and those fucking suck. That swamp will be the death of me. I swear to God.
Because I think you and I must have, even though I've played less, it must be the same arc for us because I thought this game was kind of brilliant and I loved it until I got to the swamp, and then. Honestly, why I bought Hearts of Stone last night is because I'm like, I need to play something else. I'm kind of frustrated with this. So, but yeah, maybe I'll just go somewhere else. But it's weird. I kind of thought I was being directed there, but I guess I wasn't. It's weird. I mean,
because it's actually what was weird is like it took me a while to find the swamp. It's just like I was like wandering around where I had completed like 5 areas, and I had like one really productive evening where I played for like 2 hours and I unlocked like 4 lasers. I was like, holy fucking shit! I'm blazing my way through this game. I was like, but I don't know where else to go. So
I will say this, I think when it feels intuitive and you're getting it, it's really fun and it's really fascinating. And I think it's doing something I haven't quite felt a game do before in how subtly it guides you and how much it just lets the atmosphere dictate things. I love all that about it. But yeah, it's a very delicate thing they're doing, and when it feels out of balance, it feels really out of balance.
Yeah, and I think that's like sort of like what I would say about the game is that it's an interesting sort of either new step or like diversion for the puzzle game genre is what it feels like, where like the puzzle games in terms of like what had been like popular and more of the mainstream has been dictated by Portal for so long, since like basically 2007 when Portal came out. Like that game like really made like the puzzle genre sort of like invigorated in a different way that like you'd just never seen a game like Portal that had that sort of like fully explorable 3D environment, and all the puzzles were based on like this very simple mechanic of just moving around the environment, and you given this portal ability that allows you to do that in a very creative way. And that's all the puzzles in Portal 1 and Portal 2, where they like throw some like stuff that you can play with that mixes things up a bit, but it is about like fundamentally in Portal like going like walking into a room and finding a way to get through the door, and that's it. And like you have to push some buttons, or you have to like launch yourself up or something, but that's that. And it was such a different kind of puzzle game. And then it had all the humor and the atmosphere on it. And there were a bunch of like Xbox Live Arcade games and Steam releases and stuff that like basically did what Portal did, but never did it that well. Of stuff like the Talos Principle is a game that I played a little bit of that. It was pretty good, but it's still like, it felt like they're different puzzle mechanics, but they're all just building on the idea of what Portal was, but none of them are as good as like, are as like tight as Portal 1 and Portal 2. And The Witness is the first sort of like mainstream puzzle game I've played that feels like it is not that. Like it has some of that, like it has like the more of the Myst thing of where it is this like fully explorable 3D environment, but the core mechanics of the puzzles are like, they are puzzle-ass puzzles. And some of them rely on the environment in a way that like you could only do them in this game, but there are like a bunch of the puzzles, like all the Tetris piece puzzles, that like you could do that in like a book. Like you could do that on a piece of paper and solve the puzzles that way. Like these are just strict puzzles. You walk up to the panel and you draw the line, and if you draw the line in the right way, you win, and that's it. And like for probably about like 50 to 60% of the puzzles, like you could just complete them in that way without any of the information from the rest of the game at all.
It feels like when I play it, I'm not exercising the video game side of my brain as much as like when I do Sudoku or a maze or something. Like it's way more on that side of your brain.
Yeah. Or like I had this like sort of like thought last night when I was like banging my head against these Tetris piece puzzles that was like, because like the way you have to sort of like arrange things in your head and sort of like test things out to try to like solve those puzzles was in such a way where I was like, I was just sitting there thinking, I should just go and like break out my old calculus textbook and like brush up on calculus, because it would like that would be way more constructive for me as a human being and would be less resource intenseful for my brain to do that and to like be doing these puzzles sometimes. Like, but the Tetris piece puzzles are the only ones that are like that. Like the dot puzzles are a lot more like you said, like it uses a sort of Sudoku kind of component to it.
And I think it does this smart thing where, you know, you have how you kind of learn to do things is they have these rows of panels where it starts you with what's the basic mechanic, go to a more complex version, add another thing on, and then do a couple of like full-on puzzles. And then you unlock that whole row, and sometimes it unlocks something in the world, and sometimes it's just giving you the knowledge to move on. And I like those. I think that's an interesting part. And I really did, when I was kind of in the zone and did the whole symmetry section, I was really loving it.
Yeah.
I was really into it. But I think it's an interesting game to me because I said this at the time, like on Twitter when I did all the symmetry stuff, and I still agree with it, even if I got frustrated with the Tetramino part, is I think it is this fascinating and kind of brilliant melding of old school puzzle adventure gaming and a kind of really of the moment indie zeitgeist kind of thing. Like it feels of two worlds, and that makes it what it is. It can be frustrating sometimes, but it is so sure of itself in that element of what it is. Like, I do not say this as an insult. This is a game my dad would have fucking loved. Like,
right, yeah.
Because he was a huge Myst fan. He's from that era of video games. You know, that was his jam. This would be like the fucking oasis in a desert for someone like that.
Yeah.
And I think they would really fall in love with it. And I can see it being just like people playing on the PC with their fucking notepad in their lap, playing it like that. And I kind of like that, even if it's not entirely my thing all the time. I like that about it, and I like that it doesn't feel like it's a throwback or trying to be something completely new and different. It's of those kind of two mindsets, and I think it melds them effectively.
Yeah, and it creates a new sort of model for how puzzle games can use these sort of like really rigid, basic sort of like, again, like just like puzzle mechanics, of like that make you think of something more like a Tetris than a Portal, but then also incorporate that with the way that like video games have evolved in the ways that we're able to construct complex 3D environments and present information to the people in that way, and like give the player freedom in that way. And it's a really fascinating mix of those two things. And for the most part, I think it's a success. It is mainly that I think it was like I hit the point with the swamp where like once I figured out the mechanic and realized now like how to solve those puzzles and can do them fairly reliably, like I got to the point where it's like I feel like it is just a bad mechanic. It's not that like I'm dumb or something, or it's not like that I'm just not getting it and I need to think about it in a different way. It is that like at some point, like it's not an interesting type of puzzle and it's not a fun like expansion on what is good about those like panel puzzles that you run into. The Tetris stuff is too complex for that like it's not, it feels like it's a waste of your time to try to solve those puzzles because it is too much sort of like having to sit there and sort of like think about, okay, if I put this here and put that there and put that there, then I could, no, then I can't do that. Then I have to put this here and put that there and put that there. No, I can't do that. And like you just have to like go through a bunch of different configurations because there's no way to intuit the solution to the puzzle in the way that you can with the other type of puzzles in the game.
Exactly. And when I say the game kind of broke me there, it's because I spent like an hour trying to figure those fucking things out. Could not, like I thought I had the mechanic down so many times and I kept missing it. And I thought, honestly, I think some of the mechanics I came up with were better versions of what it was suggesting and more in line with what the game had showed me. And I finally just looked it up online because it's like, and I wasn't trying to like match every puzzle. It's just, what is it asking me to do? I have no idea. And I looked it up and I put it in like, I get it now, but I don't know how, one, you're ever supposed to get that. And I don't know how this works going forward. Because as soon as I knew it, even looking at the next one, I'm like, I would have to break out fucking graph paper to do that. I don't want to.
It's something where it's like, in parts of the rule set feel really arbitrary about like. So I'm like, and so for that area specifically, was it because I imagine you probably got stuck where I got stuck. Did you finish? You finished all the tutorial panels,
pretty much, yeah.
And then you have to go on like that bridge where you solve the puzzle, and solving the puzzle in a specific way moves the bridge. You get to that point. And then you go up, and there are the red panels.
The red panels are what finally just
because it's like there's a gate with 2 panels on it. And then, like, a row of panels on the right. It was like, I could
the gate with 2 panels I could do, not the row on the right.
Yeah, that's basically exactly where I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and the gate with 2 panels, I can only do the first one.
Yes. So. And then, because that's where it introduces... Well, basically, I'll just say it because it's like, fuck it. Like, fuck these puzzles. I don't want to spoil the other puzzles that you have gotten to. But, like, we could just talk about this. The basic thing of what it is that, like... It's hard to explain. But it's like you have, like, different blocks have, like, a sort of Tetris piece shape in it. And it's like you have to draw your lines, and if it's containing like that shape specifically and only that shape, it can solve it. But if you like draw your lines in such a way that you're containing another square with another shape, that's like 4 vertical lines, and another one is another 4 vertical lines, you can then make like a block that is like 4 by 2, and you can do that. Or if like it was like 4 vertical lines and a 4 horizontal, you could do like you can combine the shapes in different ways, and then like, but that becomes so complicated if you are connecting 4 or 5 shapes at once on a big, like, 8x8 grid. Like, the number of different permutations of how you can configure all those pieces together is so insane of, like, having to think of, like, okay, if I draw this way, because I know I need all of these in one massive configuration, but it's like I can put, like, this 4 block down here, and, like, this little L piece up in the right, and then this L piece below it, and, like, trying to connect all of those. It gets so frustrating. And, like, it's something that feels like it's such a trial and error thing of having to try different permutations until you can find the one that gets you to the exit. That's, like, it's a bad mechanic.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and I even, looked up the solution to one of those that was just, like, I literally don't understand how this could work. And then I got the solution. I'm like, okay, I kind of see it, but I would never logically go there because that doesn't seem like it would work, It's like... That just doesn't, and like I wouldn't say that about any of the other puzzles I've encountered in the game. So, and I feel like maybe we're giving this too much weight. It's the biggest weakness. The game does a lot of other stuff very well.
Yeah, obviously. But like it is like it might be a fatal weakness for me. Like I don't know if I have like the patience to work my way all the way through the swamp area. And like if you don't do that, because they add mechanics on top of the basic Tetris mechanics as well, of like pieces that then you can twist and pieces that like subtract from the shape and stuff. That's like it gets even more infuriating later.
Yeah, no, I would never do that.
That's like, and you need to do those and understand those mechanics to solve some of the later puzzles in the game that combine different mechanics together. That's like unless I like am able to get through the swamp area and feel like, okay, like I can take these Tetris puzzles and they don't take me like 10 minutes to solve each one, then I might like just proceed with the rest of the game. But it might stop my progress. Like, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling it now with those.
No, and it's fatal in so much as I probably will never beat the game because I will never have the patience for that. I will play the other stuff, and it's never...
You should go to the other areas.
I will, and from the moment I start playing it, I just know this is a destination, or journey, not the destination kind of game. Like, I don't think I would have a lesser experience if I didn't finish it, but obviously it would be a stronger game if it incentivized you to actively finish the whole thing. So, it's tough to know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the visuals, because I'm of two minds about this. I think the game is absurdly beautiful. It's running at a like smooth 60... The colors just are insane.
It's got a sort of like pastel look to it that's really beautiful. That's like it's because it's a very natural landscape, but it's not necessarily realistic. Like, it's very stylized.
Yeah, like I jumped up from Witcher 3 to this, and it's like it was visual overload at a certain point of like too much beautiful nature stuff. But I will say, every time I go into a puzzle and then I come out of it and I see something breathtaking in the world, I get distracted because I'm like, I almost think these two things don't go together, like the beautiful visuals and the puzzles, because I kind of want to play a different kind of game when I'm looking at those visuals, because the vast majority of the time you're not looking at those, you're looking at your little puzzle screen.
Although you haven't necessarily, because there are like sets of puzzles that make use of the environment in ways that it sounds like you haven't gotten to those that are different. Like, there's some that like do that play with that.
Okay, that's better then. But I was like, every time I'm walking around, I get distracted and stop looking for puzzles because I want to play it like Proteus or something.
Right.
And just be in the world.
Play Proteus is, you can go and sit down on a field, but you don't play Proteus. Proteus plays you.
You move around in the world and you choose where to go and what to look at.
I mean, you can do that in The Witness. There's nothing stopping you from doing that in The Witness. There's nothing stopping you from having a Proteus-like experience in The Witness.
Proteus does move. I think you're underselling.
Well, it does evolve and like the landscape changes. Like, you're right about that. But like, it does. I think there's like a lot about the environment of The Witness and how it's built that has an almost Proteus-like aspect to it of like the environment, like it like means something. And it's like again, it's so hard to talk about this because like there's a lot of stuff about the game that like in puzzle types and stuff that if I just tell you it will spoil that whole thing about like all those puzzles about the game. Yeah. And for like people listening as well, and I don't want to do that. But like it does use the environment in clever ways, and it feels like the environment is built, and everything in the game is exceedingly deliberate. And I feel like the visual style is very minimalist, and it needs to be minimalist because some of the puzzles, like if there was too much visual noise, the puzzle would be unsolvable. Or like the audio is very minimalist because if there's too much audio noise, you would not be able to finish the puzzle. That's like. And like the movement speed and the fact that you can't jump and the fact that you can't drop down ledges and stuff, like it has to be that way because they like Jonathan Blow and his team had to control what the player does, sees, and hears in very specific ways in very specific areas, because if you did not do that, it would make it impossible to like intuit what the solution to the puzzle would be, or like even be able to access the solution to the puzzle. And like the level of control on the environment and like how it's constructed is really remarkable to me. Like, and it's very clear why this game took so long to make, because he's been working on this game for like 7 years.
No, and it is a technical masterstroke, no doubt about that. And it is just, if you think about it in terms of video game design, it's just unbelievable to play it.
Yeah, and it is like the thing about it that's the most fascinating to me is that it relies entirely upon the player's intuition to be able to solve the puzzles. And that is a blessing and a curse. Most of the time it's fine. That the Tetris mechanic is too complex, I think, to be able to reasonably convey through intuition alone, because there's like too many facets to how that rule set works. But most of the time, like the number of different aha moments I've had in this game is really spectacular, of like running into a puzzle and looking at it for a second, and they're like, because there are a bunch of puzzles in the game that rely on environmental mechanics that like the panel is just a normal panel and there's nothing on it. It's just a start point, it's a grid, and there's an end point, and you're looking at it's like, what the fuck do I do? Like there's nothing here. And then you have to like stop and look around and like pay a little bit more attention and realize like, oh no, there is like information around me and like stuff I'm like being given access to that I was not aware of that is allowing me to solve this puzzle. And like there are a couple of areas like the castle that do that in really fascinating ways that build on it really well.
Yeah, and No, I mean, and our big complaint of like the Tetramino area, that's an example of a game being undone only by its own ambition, because it's the kind of thing where they're reaching high enough that, as we say, it is a delicate thing, and that the game, as you say, works as much as it does is probably a minor miracle.
I mean, this game could be like terrible. Like it could very easily have been terrible because it could very easily have been 11 of those swamp areas. Like it could very easily like the fact that basically every area I've been to other than the swamp I've found has worked really well, with a couple of like minor missteps and sort of specific puzzles, maybe like puzzle types going on for too long or something like that and getting annoying. Like other than a couple of those, like the vast majority of the puzzle types I've run into I found really interesting.
Yeah. It's cool, and definitely it's the kind of game that I love the PS4 for, because this would not have been on a console 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, definitely not. It definitely does feel like it is. Like you said, like it's fascinating because Jonathan Blow's Braid was one of the first games on the Xbox Live Arcade that sort of like started the sort of like mainstream indie revolution thing that we're still a part of, and this feels like it is the natural next step of that, of having this very indie game development mindset where like this type of game would never be made at like an EA or an Activision or an Ubisoft, but this game is ambitious enough that it would require like some of the resources that a studio like that would have, and that like Jonathan Blow, I think he's designed all the puzzles, but he did not make the game by himself the way that like he practically made the Braid by himself. Like it was a tiny team on Braid. It's like there's a couple of dozen people that worked on The Witness, but it's like, but it still has that sort of like auteur kind of element to it that you can see that like there's a very specific kind of person that would make puzzles like this, and it's like I feel like you get insight into that sort of creative mind by playing this game.
Yes. And it is kind of cool that it can sell as well as it's done. I would not have expected a game like this to reach that kind of audience, but it's one of the cool things about, again, the PS4 specifically, I think, being as big as it is that as those kinds of audiences get bigger in that potential pool, you can make something that is niche and it can take off. And it's crazy to me. Yeah. But I love it.
Oh, one other thing I'll say about the game that like it just occurred to me that I've had kind of fun with. This is a feature I haven't used that much recently, is remote play with the Vita. But I've been using it a little bit with Witness because I've had like some opportunity to do so. And it's like, it's the perfect game because like as long as you're in like an area that like, I mean, well, there's no area in the game that's so intensive that you can't do this. It's all just like wandering around looking at stuff and solving those puzzles and dragging a cursor around. And it's like, so there's nothing intensive about the controls. It is a great remote play game.
That's a good idea, because obviously the last game I played was The Witcher 3. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And Gravity Rush, that'd be weird because it is
that would be hilarious. That'd be so great if you bought the PS4 version of Gravity Rush Remastered and then playing the entire thing in remote play on your Vita.
It says it on the back of the box, and I think it's funny that they advertise it. But yeah, so I wasn't going to do it on either of those, so I'd kind of forgotten about it. But yeah, I could totally do it on The Witness.
Yeah.
I also want to say, I took a year off, and I was on Xbox for 2015, my grand Xbox experiment.
Right.
God, I missed the DualShock 4.
It's such a good controller.
Such a good controller. I never get it. Like I never take it for granted. Every time I pick it up, I'm like, this controller is so fucking good.
Yeah.
So good. Everything about it. Love it.
It is. Yeah.
Especially now that they let you dim the light bar. So that's my one complaint, because it would shine off my TV. Now you can just set it down a little bit so you still get the color, but it doesn't shine off your TV. It's perfect.
They should. I mean, I know The Witness is on the PC, so they can't do this, but it would have been amazing if they'd used the light bar in a puzzle. They should have done that.
Fucking hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Witcher 3 is the one that's made the most use of it I've ever seen, with all the different time of day colors.
Yeah. Was
that there at launch?
I think so.
Okay. Because it seems like a very deep use of it that they had fun with. But anyway. Yeah, so... Anyway, PS4, Witness, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, other thing, it's $40.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a fair asking price?
Yes. Like, I've definitely, like, played... If it's a game you're, like, getting deep into, like, I've played more than enough of that game to warrant that asking price. Like, there's a lot of stuff in that game. Like, because even though, like, I've almost beaten the game, basically, and, like, I could complete, like, most of the rest of the game pretty easily if I just decided to, like, ignore the swamp area... Like, there's, like, a lot of hidden layers to that game and, like, other puzzles and, like, deep, dark shit deep in that island that, like, I've, like, sort of, like, brushed on and seen and being like, I'm not going to deal with... Like, I may never deal with that, but I'm certainly not dealing with it now. Like, maybe in the future I'll come back and try to solve some of these, like, really deeper puzzles. Because there's definitely, like, there's like, because there is like the strict like areas and completing the panels and unlocking the lasers and going through the final area. Like, there is that level of the game, and there is a whole deeper, way deeper level of the game that you can get into with like optional puzzles. So yes, it's definitely worth $40 to me at least.
I totally agree, and I think it's worth it. I just know it was kind of a point of controversy at first, and I think people, if you haven't played it, I understand how you could ask.
Yeah, on the surface, it might seem like it's not worth it, but yeah, it's definitely,
because it's usually the price points are $20 or $60. You know,
yeah.
So 40 is kind of in between. But if you think of it this way, like that's the price of a 3DS or Vita game, totally worth that.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I think 40 is more than fair. But yeah,
yeah. I'll also say there's one other funny thing about The Witness that I want to say. And they're very rare. I've only found a couple of them, and I've probably missed a few. But there are, like, I guess you'd call them audio logs in the world. You found some where
one.
You like, and when you activate them, but they're not. It's not like you click on it and it's some scientist talking about like, oh hey Bob, like I set the password on the door to cheesecake because someone's been messing with it at the party. Haha. Like, it's not that kind of audio log. They're all excerpts from, like, extant material of, like, journals and stuff. Of, like, in our world of, like, actual writing that has been done. That they just, like, have some actor read. And there's one that, like, it's on top of the mountain that's, like...
That's the one I've heard, yeah.
Yes. That it's, like, 7 minutes long.
It's so long.
It was so absurd. It was, like... And I think that might legitimately just be like an entire speech or something. Like, it is so long, or like a full essay just read out. And I found a couple of other ones that weren't that long. I just want to say, like, if you're playing The Witness and you haven't found that yet, just go click on that and just be like, when is this going to stop? Because I don't really want to go around solving puzzles right now. I kind of want to listen to this. That was my reaction
too, because I also didn't know if I went too far, if it would stop or something.
Yeah, if like I went to it's like I don't want to like interrupt this in any way. So I was just like, I just want to have the island. And at first I was like, I was just kind of appreciating walking around the island. And at some point I was like, it's been 4 minutes, dude. Shut the fuck up. Like, and it's stuff that like I've seen a lot of people calling this game pretentious, and I can definitely understand why, especially if you're listening to some of those audio logs. There's some stuff in there that you kind of can start rolling your eyes at when, like, you realize, oh, this is what this is referring to in terms of, like, what's going on in the game. It can be a little bit obnoxious in that way, but they're, like, it's kind of out of the way. It's just something I wanted to say because I thought it was funny.
No, and I actually really liked that excerpt, even if it was, like, 8 minutes long. I actually kind of, because I started recognizing what it was. I mean, it's about space, and you'll have heard parts of it before.
Yeah.
But I kind of enjoyed it, and it was kind of a nice, just atmospheric thing within the game. Like, I totally think it would be fair to call it pretentious. I don't think it's trying to be that elevated intellectually. I think it's just kind of there for atmosphere. But it is kind of funny. It's interesting. And it's very jarring when you get to it for the first time, because mostly it is 100% non-narrative, non-vocal.
Yeah.
And then this doesn't make it narrative, but it does make it briefly vocal, and it's jarring.
Yeah, in a way that it's like I'm curious about like what the decision process was to put those in there, because it's like maybe again it's like there's like levels to this game that I have not gotten to, like the multiple meanings of the word levels, and so maybe that stuff seems more valuable at some point in the game. But there is a part of me that, like, because I've listened to 3 or 4 of them at this point, and there's a part of me that's like, I kind of wish this wasn't there, because some of them put kind of too fine a point on it when, like, you're listening to this speech, and then, like, you think about, okay, this is where I found this. Why am I listening to this? Oh, that's why I'm listening to this. That's kind of stupid. Like, you don't need to... Like, I feel like the game makes sort of interesting statements about how people learn and how people observe things, and, like, how people make connections in their logical connections in their mind. That's like, to me, that's what that game is about. And there's something about some of those audio logs that, like, you don't need this. Like, this feels excessive and kind of obnoxious. And the game felt way more pure when it's like there's nobody talking to your ear about like borders between countries and stuff.
Right. Well, definitely interesting, and I think we'll probably have updates on this game as we continue to play it.
Because it's something where it's like there's a lot more that I have to say about it that I can't say because it would spoil. Like, you cannot talk about puzzles in this game to someone that has not played the puzzles. It wouldn't make sense.
So maybe at some point we'll do that. I don't feel like it's essential, but we can get into it.
Yeah, like I'd be happy. I'd be like, I think it'd be interesting to talk about it once you get to some of the other areas of the game. And again, I implore you, leave. Like,
I'll do it.
Get the fuck out of the swamp. Go anywhere other than the swamp. Like, you can even go to the quarry, because you can do half the quarry without running into Tetris puzzles.
Okay, I'll figure something out. But yeah, it's good to know that, because I just had felt like I had run into so many dead ends. I thought this was where I was supposed to go.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. That because that's one of the risks of the game, is that when it's that open and like freeform in design, is the only part that it feels like it really sort of like leads you to that symmetry area like pretty naturally from where you come out. That's like basically I think that's more or less one's first laser they unlock. But past that point, it is very open and it's very easy to like you said, like stumble into a bunch of dead ends of stuff that you don't know how to solve yet, and then run into what is without a doubt the hardest area in the game. That's not like the like deep shit.
Yes, so I've just got to take another look at it. Yep. But anyway, I think that's it for this week.
Yeah,
lots of good stuff to talk about. We'll have more. I'm not sure what next week's will be. We want to review Persona 3 the movie. We'll be recording that. I'm not sure when it'll come out because I want to review Deadpool. So if we get to see that, that'd be great. Yeah. And we'll see when that comes out. And we have other episodes coming up. We will be weekly. And I think in the next couple weeks, we might even just, I don't know, need to spend a Saturday or Sunday banking some episodes because we've got some other topics that are fresh on our minds.
Yeah.
We might not want to release for a little while. So, and we know what those are. But anyway, we'll get into that.
Yeah, way more stuff coming down the pipeline. And I guess I gotta solve more of those fucking Tetris puzzles. God damn it.